Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show for Thursday. It is July the 16th. I'm in long sleeves, even though it's summer here in Texas, and it's just pissing rain. I don't know why, but we're 1 year away from 1 year and 1 week or so away from a pretty aggressive rainstorm that took place over the 4th of July week and then a couple days afterwards. It also, in addition to being the anniversary of a major flood that took place in Central Texas, it's the anniversary, it was a week ago, of the shutting down of the Epstein files. And interestingly enough, we're talking about it again. It's still in front of Congress. It's still a thing that's being brought up when we start talking about what Todd Blanche is going to do and whether or not he should be confirmed. And so you've got Democrats now weaponizing this bit. And of course, just within the last 2 days, we had J.D. Vance show up on the Joe Rogan show, and he had to answer questions about the Epstein files because, unfortunately, when you really screw something up that bad, they don't let you forget it in politics. And I'd also would argue that if you're explaining, you're losing, which is why the Trump administration is kind of losing. They're trying to rehab the image of J.D. Vance. They're going out there and floating the idea of a Marco Rubio, and they're trying to figure out, hey, do we have anybody here that can kind of pick up the banner and roll with this? The funniest thing about all that is that this should be a layup year. This should be a layup midterms for the left. I don't actually believe that we have elections. I think I've said that a number of times, so I'm not playing around about that. I just don't think they're real. I think it might as well be the grown-up equivalent of writing a letter to Santa Claus. But I do think that there's a narrative battle. And if your narrative is strong enough, then you can pull off whatever sort of fraud you'd like. Interestingly enough, we're supposed to hear from Donald Trump tonight about maybe election fraud in 2020 and who was involved in it. So I got a couple stories about that. For me, it does feel like if you can sell the BS that you're selling at a level that most people would look at it and go, oh yeah, that's why this thing happened, then you can get away with whatever the outcome is that you'd like. And the only thing that you really need to do when the other side is explaining and losing and making terrible decisions and making promises and not keeping them, and that could go all the way down the list of the things from Agenda 47, which was Donald Trump's promises to the American people when he ran in 2023 and 2024. You still, when you have the levers of power, you should probably do some of the things you said, I would think. And all the lefties had to do, all the wacky lefties have to do, is not be crazy. And one of the probably top ways that you don't be crazy is don't put Ozempic skeleton looking bitches, like horrible, rotten, retarded bitch women in front of your party and be like, we're going to put identity politics first in 2026. And I said that very intentionally because the woman we're going to talk about today, Jennifer Welch, is freaking awful. Absolutely disgusting. And every time I hear her, I think she's doing an act. And then I was like, no, she's not. We've all met this woman in our personal lives. We've all met a Jennifer Welch, someone who is divorced because someone just got sick of putting up with her bullshit. And so we have that woman in front of us in the social media space. Everybody and their brother is commenting on it. Glenn Beck is commenting on it. All these other people have gone out and they want to make a big deal because what she said was Christians and homeschoolers are the problem. Her buddy, her partner in crime, said the quiet part out loud, which is kind of incredible. Said that it's, white Christians and mothers who want to be around their children that shouldn't be trusted. I mean, if you were going to go and do the full crazy meltdown, that's what you would do. And so these ladies went out and did this. And interestingly enough, it's trending right now on social media. And so we'll cover all that. But I think it actually has a broader point, which is that identity politics is functionally dead. And the smart people on the left know that. If you go and read, I'm going to have a story from the Washington Post, which was covering the elections in California. If there was anything more aggressive than lefty sort of politics in California, I don't know what it is. And then you turn around and you go, oh, this lady's going to double down on it. Why? Maybe because she lives in Oklahoma and news gets to Oklahoma slower. That was the case when I lived in Oklahoma. It was like, I think in the early 2000s, they got POGs. Do you guys remember Pogs? They were like those little bottle cap looking things, and you'd stack them up, and then you'd hit them with a slammer. It was like a big piece of brass or something. Knock those. In any case, Oklahoma sometimes adopts things slower, and this lady is apparently going to do 2009 politics, 2010 politics in 2026. What a weird choice. All right, so all of that is fun. I'll just remind you, today's show is brought to you by you, our viewers that are our subscribers over on YouTube, on Locals, on X. I appreciate all of you guys signing up and backing this show. You can also find our other sponsors at kyleseraphin.com. There is a link in the show description that you can find that will take you to all of them. Check out Secured if you're looking to secure any of your firearms. It's the stuff that I'm using. There's a link that's specific to that. It's like an affiliate link. I don't make any money unless you guys use it. I 100% stand behind the products. I've been using them since well before I ever thought about this when I was working in the FBI. And there's a QR code that you'll see on the screen right now that you can scan. And if you are so inclined, it'll take you to that little post that we put up that will allow you to look at any of our stuff. So if you happen to be one of the people that watches on YouTube, and yeah, I started a little bit late on there. If you're the YouTube watcher that wants to scan it with your phone, knock yourself out. All right, we're going to get into today's program. We're going to have a lot of fun with a bunch of weird stuff and maybe a movie clip that explains where these weirdo ladies are at. Let's do it right now. All right. So we got a little bit of a late start on the YouTube things, but I see you guys have all made it there. Those regular YouTube group. We have very different dynamics on the different platforms. I think if you're watching on Spotify, which I think is the easiest way to control your experience, kyleseraphinshow.com, then you'll go in there and you'll get a very different look at the program. And if you watch it live on Rumble, there's a specific community of people that show up there and you're seeing them. On my screen, it's on the right-hand side. And then if you're watching on the YouTube, you're on the left. It's mirrored, but that's where they are for me. In any case, want to start with identity politics. This was a real world example that just popped out of nowhere. My wife and I are having breakfast. She said something funny. I probably shouldn't give it away, but I will tell you. We were having a discussion. It might have been yesterday. Sometimes my wife does these zingers. Usually she knows a ton of things about food that I know nothing about. And she'll recommend, herbs that I don't know what they do. And she'll be doing other things that, don't make any sense. To me, I'm not like a potions guy. I'm not an acupuncture guy, generally not a chiropractor guy. And so she surprised me because she's usually the food expert. And I think it was last night. She goes, dates, those are just dehydrated plums, right? and the few moments when I know more about a food than my wife does, which, like I said, it's almost never in whatever it is, 17 years that I've known her. It's almost never. And I go, oh, you mean prunes? Yes. I was like, I'm pretty sure dates are just dates. But anyway, we have this huge thing of dates. And if you've ever owned or bought like a big container of dates and you have a 2-year-old like I do, what happens is that the 2-year-old gets a hold of a date, which looks kind of like a shriveled, wet dog turd. And then what she does is she wanders around and she eats about half or a third of it. And so there's a dog turd sized turdlet that is left over. And then she'll just leave it places because she's 2. So my 2-year-old left out a date. And I found it and I looked at it and I thought it was probably food just based on the placement of it, but I couldn't be sure. And even if it's not, it's my job to pick up turdlets as a dad. So I just picked it up. I barehand things now. I have 4 kids. So that's when you start barehanding things. I barehand this, what is possibly a turd. And I'm looking at this thing going, what on earth am I looking at here? And I asked my wife and we got into discussion and she says, aren't they just dehydrated plums? Of course, that's a prune. Dates are dates. They do some other funny things. So we had this little moment. So I guess this morning she must have got it in her head to look up the health benefits of dates. So this is a long-winded story to tell you about the funny things that go on in my house. And there you have it on the thing from Healthline, the health benefits of dates. Now, if you're a sane person, you're over here going, hey man, what does this have to do with what you just said about identity politics? Well, hang in there because I got you covered, okay? And you might be wondering, wait, you make great decisions, Seraphin. You got kicked out of the FBI and you're unemployable right now. What eating advice do you have for me? Do you want to tell me about dates? Sure. The key takeaways, according to this healthline.com article, dates are high in fiber and antioxidants. I read that as things that I probably want, although I don't know for a fact, and I have to ask my wife about that. They may support, I like may support, could be, digestion, and they can reduce the risk of certain chronic conditions. No further information in this key takeaway. They contain helpful nutrients. I'm a big fan of helpful nutrients, whatever they may be, I want them. They're also high in calories, so you have to eat them in moderation. Maybe that's why my daughter only ate a third of them, because she's so small. You can eat dates as a snack. You can use them as a sugar substitute. You can add them to smoothie. Oh, you can put them in smoothies or bars or energy balls. All of that sounds lovely. Dates are a fruit of the date palm tree, which is grown in many tropical regions. Almost all dates sold in Western countries are dried. So now you know things about dates that you might have not known. They are not plums. And you can tell whether a date is dried based on its appearance. The wrinkly skin, which is kind of turd-like, as I explained, are dried, whereas the smooth skin indicates freshness. Mine are kind of dark brownish, so I think that's the wrinkly skin. But once they've been kind of chewed on by a 2-year-old, who knows? Fresh dates are relatively small in size and range in color from bright red to yellow. Commonly consumed varieties are some other words that I can't explain. This is why this is relevant. Are you, you guys? I don't like dates that much, by the way. I'm not eating them. A note about language. This is a thing that is right in the middle of this article about nutritious and lovely dried and or fresh dates. The use of binary terms such as men and women, which they put in quotation marks in this article, reflect the language of the sources we've used. Unless otherwise noted, it's clear whether the research we've referenced includes participants. It's unclear, whether the research we've referenced included participants of expansive gender identities. That is a real language note in Healthline.com's analysis of dates and date eating. I freaking kid you not. The use of binary terms like men and women, which I know that most of you listening to them, you're like, holy crap, what is a man? What is a woman? What is men? Is that many men? Is that Elizabeth Ellen, whatever her name is, Paige, the lesbian gal that's dating another lesbian gal? What is it? What does it mean to have these words included? These strange, quote unquote, binaries. And they wanted you to know that even though that nobody will tell you what the expansive gender ideologies of the participants included in the research that they've included, they're just using the language of the sources like scientists. Isn't that fun? That's how that all relates. If you read that in 2026 and you think, that's a perfectly logical thing, I mean, you might roll your eyes at it and go, yeah, of course, that's what they would put in there. But there's something kind of funny about them doing it in a serious publication that is, in theory, talking about the nutritional values. I mean, look, here, we'll just scroll down a little further. They're nutritious. Here are all these factual identifiers. I mean, there's 113 calories per 40-gram serving of dates. Do they identify as calories? Do they identify as carbs? They have fibers and proteins, and they have all this other stuff in there. There's B6. What a strange thing to put in there that we're worried about this. I just found it fascinating. I don't know how else to say it. I think it's funny. So, with that being said, punch right in here. I got a notice. I'm going to put on the broad shot right now. Over my shoulder, some of you guys will see, is a fin. You guys may not know that. I guess I could lean back. Ooh. There it is. There's a fin, there's a snorkel, and there's a mask. And I got a message from one of my buddies telling me, hey man, it's time to put on your snorkel, your fin, and your mask, and get to high ground. Take your family and escape. And I didn't know. I didn't know that was going on. Large and deadly flood wave hitting the Texas Hill Country. Just for those of you that are concerned, I continue to be safe because I have chosen my home wisely. We have a massive filling pond behind us and a rollout, and we are on high ground, and there's a river behind me. So for anyone that wants to send me messages, and I actually do get these messages from you all. You send me messages and you go, hey, are you safe? I heard there was catastrophic flooding. Not where I live, even though usually I can hear the rain on the roof above me right now. A large and deadly wave, flood wave. It threatens the Texas Hill Country again. They're still reeling from what happened at Camp Mystic last year. Again, a lot of the stuff brings me back to the Epstein files, but since this thing is happening currently right now, just let you guys know if you happen to be in the area, we'll check in on my wife's aunt who's out there, and she lost her home last time, and they're in the middle of building another one, and God willing, their current temporary living quarters are not flooded out, but it sounds like they've gotten a ton of water. a ton of it. And for whatever that, if you guys have ever seen what a Texas flood looks like, if you live in a place where like rain and water is sort of normal, Texas is kind of like a desert. A lot of central Texas is. We used to get these in Oklahoma as well. We'll be talking Oklahoma in a minute. There's some pretty wild stuff that goes on in these places. And I used to see flash flooding when I was a kid as well. We had a creek that was maybe ankle deep. My dad used to shoot the beavers that would try to dam it up and make it deeper than ankle deep. But we had this little tiny wandering little creek behind us, right? And it would go... it was probably a 40-foot from the backyard all the way down to the creek level. And when it would rain, that thing would get 25 feet deep. If you've never seen a creek go from a few inches to 25 feet deep, it's insane. And this is actually what they're talking about in the Guadalupe River, which is pronounced Guadalupe, out in Comfort, Texas, which is where our family members live. 25 feet in an hour. Texas floods are no joke. They're absolutely terrifying if you've never seen it. If you're up high enough to be able to watch it, it's pretty fun to watch, but you don't see these in a lot of places, and you don't see them in places I've lived. I've never seen them really in Florida. I guess maybe like a tidal surge. It's not quite the same thing, and I don't even know how it works. I guess the low ground allows the water to come into these spaces, and they just blast through. So I've seen apartments that are 30 feet above the water level. You know, they're looking down over a bluff. And then you look out, and then an hour later, the water it's a massive dirty river, and there's all kinds of crap in it too. Every time these things happen, there's like picnic tables and like kids stuff and a tricycle going by and some poor bastard's trumpet and just like weird things that have been in people's front yard that they forgot about. Chase lounges, it just goes flying by you. So in any case, this is happening currently right now in Texas. It's a good reminder that this was the shield that was being used by the Trump administration to drop out the Epstein administration stuff. This is why they got the Epstein administration name. And so it's kind of interesting when you see a guy like JD Vance, who I think is trying to rehab his image. And we're literally 1 year away from that moment where it happened, where all that stuff went down, and it went sideways for them very, very quickly because they tried to hide behind the death of about 130 children, which is also in this article. It was, they call it the July 4th floods, but it was actually the period of floods where they were still doing the seeking. And by the July 7th of last year, so that's a year and 10 days ago, year and 9 days ago, we ended up in this weird moment where they're dropping this leak to Axios, which is a left-wing outlet, and saying we're closing the Epstein investigation. Remember, Daniel Bongino was there, 292. Do we just have to say 292 because that's how many days he was there? He was there for part of his 292 days. You had Kash Patel, you had Pam Bondi, and two of them are no longer in the administration. So when I look into the Brian Cole Jr. case and what's going on at the pipe bomber, when I see some of these crazy things, I go, people lost their jobs over this. And the Epstein administration, the Epstein file rollout and the binders and all the sort of chaotic stupidity, all of that stuff happened at the same time. 1 year ago, roughly last week. So here's JD Vance on Rogan talking about, and he doesn't really admit that they did a terrible job. He kind of says it's a bad messaging job. What he forgot to say was that it wasn't just bad messaging. No one ever took blame. And now they're out there trying to throw it on Pam Bondi, and Pam Bondi's trying to throw it on Todd Blanche. Todd Blanche is hoping that he's going to be able to get confirmed as the AG. I suspect he probably will. I've got a video of him in his confirmation hearing. He says he's the same guy that was at the Southern District of New York. That might actually be the problem. If you follow this show, you know that there's a couple of problematic districts in the federal circuit. One of them is SDNY. It's the same one that came after every basically foreign terrorist that they were able to go and indict because it's an easy soft seat for government. The other thing is it went after people like James O'Keefe, who I'm not a big fan of and testified the other day. I think he's kind of a clown, but I think what they did to him was wrong. So I can be consistent about saying what they did to him was wrong, but I don't like him as a person. And then on top of all that, your other ones are going to be the District of Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia, and then EDVA, the Eastern District of Virginia. These are all like very heavily government-friendly spaces. And that's where Todd Blanche came out of as a prosecutor. And he has some testimony about that. We're going to hone in on the J.D. Vance bit real quickly. Again, as the image, I think it's the image rehab attempt on J.D. Vance. It's palpable. You can tell because that's why you would go and sit down with Joe Rogan. And he's a little bit, everybody kind of takes the edge off. They stop being a little bit political and swear a little bit more because that's kind of the environment you're in. It does make him more presentable. Then you listen, he's just very, very political in the way that he phrases stuff. And again, I think if you're explaining, you're losing.
Again, say this with all candor, we absolutely screwed up the comms of the Epstein files, like we just did. But do I think the reason we screwed up the comms is because we were trying to hide something? No.
Did you guys ever watch the movie Zootopia? Because he just did the Zootopia bit If you've never seen it, first of all, it's a pretty cute show. Show it with your grandkids, watch it with your kids, whatever. The Zootopia bit is that if you don't know what to say to a question, ask your own question and then answer it. And so, did we screw up the comms? That's not the question. The question is, did you screw up the investigation, and did you screw up the sort of the end of it? Again, he's doing the Zootopia where he's answering his own question. Just be aware when someone does that.
I think the reason we screwed up the comms of the Epstein files is one, Pam Bondi said the client list is on my desk, right?
We're blaming somebody that's no longer in the administration.
Well, they had binders. They were standing in
right.
front.
But those binders were largely documents that had already been released, right? So let me try to
what was the
defend.
purpose of that performative display of the Epstein files? And she was saying there's tens of thousands of hours of film.
I don't know what the purpose of it was, but I know that the effect of it was to make people mistrust the entire effort. And what I think was happening,
Yep.
look, I know Pam, I like Pam. I don't think there's anything malicious going on. I think Pam was trying to respond to the political moment. I think she overstated what we had and what we didn't have. And I think that she, got roasted for it publicly by a lot of people, including me. Like, you and I have talked about this a lot. I'm like one of the OG Epstein conspiracy theorists. I've probably gone down every single rabbit hole. We could go down most of them today. Look, the original sin.
Guys, I'm just like you. I also was one of the OG conspiracy theorists, and that's why I'm the right guy to tell you that this is totally fine. This is an image rehab thing, both for the Trump administration and for J.D. Vance personally. The issue is that you said that there was no evidence, and then you released files, and it seems like there were evidence, and you've been holding back. And the other issue is that there was obviously a counterintelligence investigation, and you've explained none of it. You've got people that were in Trump's orbit that needed to answer questions. You've got dozens of people who have lost their jobs. They've lost their placement in their companies or in their royal families, or they've been arrested overseas and so on. We've had minimal accountability in this country outside of people sort of losing some political status or maybe their public social status. J.D. Vance is smart. He's a very savvy guy. You can listen to him, and if you don't listen to him closely, he sounds great. And I'm not personally one way or another on him. I just don't think it matters. I think that we're in a narrative fight. And if it was just this narrative fight where you're explaining and you're losing, then I think Republicans, as far as the narrative battle, are cooked. And again, as I said, the Democrats kind of went like, hey, hold my beer. We've got retarded, crazy, ugly, nasty women. Do you want to see what they're all about? And the answer is like, yeah, sure, I guess. I guess we could see that. Do you want to have like these horrible people? If you're seeing the screen right now, that is a woman who looks like she's impersonating a transgender man, and then like an average woman who is very dumb, says really dumb things. We don't want her either. So if you want to make it about something that's not out there, I'll get to the story in a little bit. You could let J.D. Vance on enough rope to hang himself, I suspect. You really could, and it wouldn't look good. Instead, that's not what's going on. All right. So they're out there trying to make some things issues that maybe are not issues. So I'm going to get into this story here. This is the kind of the lead story this evening. We're going to be doing a call-in show while this is probably, I don't know, maybe over. I honestly don't care to listen to Donald Trump ever give a speech again. Remember, he was going to go do a huge concert. We were going to get Milli Vanilli and Vanilla Ice. And what do we get instead? We got Donald Trump talking about the stuff that Donald Trump always talks about. So I could basically guess every Donald Trump speech. There's almost never something that I'm like, whoa, that knocked my socks off. Like, I had no idea he thought this, said this, would do this, whatever. At this point, there's been so much Donald Trump. It's not necessary for me to understand what's going on. ABC is reporting that he's going to be giving a primetime speech about the 2020 election. Let me just hold that for a second here, because I do feel like the 2020 election is relevant. And I do feel like it has shaped the way that I think about politics and the way that I think about voting. And I don't think that a speech is going to be the thing that saves it. Is that a fair way to characterize it? I think it's fair. I think it's fair because there were 20 core promises. I will continue to beat this drum. I will beat this drum all day long. This is the rubric by which the Trump administration asked us to evaluate them, as far as I can tell. If you tell me that this is what I'm running on, then I will assess how successful you were based on what you said you were going to go do. And one of the things, it's not like a maybe, it's explicit. The 19th promise of 20 is secure our elections, including same-day voting, voter identification, paper ballots, and proof of citizenship. It doesn't say, assuming things work out well. It says that the presidential agenda, that the Republican agenda, who have both houses in Congress and they also have the White House, when you have all the things in government, we should be able to look to it and say, if you can't get some of these things done in a meaningful way, then what is the purpose of voting at all? Where are we going to come out and say, well, I can just vote harder and then maybe they won't do the thing? They got all the things that they would need to get the stuff done. Here's the first page of this for those of you that want to see the first, 8. The big ones right now are number 2 and number 3, which I think are deeply related. Carrying out deportations. We're seeing more and more that that's not going to happen. We're seeing excuses. I played them earlier this week. People saying, well, we're going to stop doing car chases and stops. And, it's not that many that are involved in this. And honestly, I think Greg Bovino had the best take on this, which was that you should be targeting every illegal alien, especially the ones that are nonviolent, because there's a moment right now, and it's deeply, it's fading the way that the crest of the high water goes away. There's a moment where people are interested in getting rid of illegal aliens in this country. You have to get them out. And you should take advantage of it by going after the people that nobody is going to be super excited about under another administration. People are always going to be excited and okay with the idea that you're getting rid of rapists and murderers. I think normal, like average, everyday people that are disconnected from politics, you're going to have energy for that. But there is an energy that Donald Trump said we're going to deport millions and millions of people. And 2 million is not it. It's just not. My friends that are working in these spaces right now will tell you that if you did deportations and you did them nonstop at the rate that we're going right now, they'd be doing it from 20 years if they kept the border locked down right now. You'd never get them all out. So theoretically, in the same way they said, we're going to fund the entire government by using tariffs, that also implies some radical changes. And the radical changes have not happened, which means that people get disillusioned. And I think the narrative victory of Democrats wins. Interestingly enough, Democrats are like, no, we're not ready for that. We still have to do crazy stuff. So when I beat up on the political right on a regular basis, and this is going to be what they call themselves the right, in reality, I think they are the furthest right in political politics, but they are the left of center people in the Republican Party. When I want to pound on them, it's because I want them to move further to the right where they belong, where they actually promised, where they actually campaigned. I love when somebody says this. I'm just going to call this out in the chat right now. Voting is all we have, Kyle. I don't agree. If we could vote our way out of it, we would have already done it. In the same way that if we could spend our way out of poverty, we would have done it already. If we could, it's not like we can spend enough money to solve a problem that is cultural. That's societal. It's a societal issue. I don't think that's the case. I just don't. I think that I've recognized, I just had a nice interview with Father Calvin Robertson out in England, and we were talking about, exactly where I believe we have power, and it's not over our systems. Our systems do not change. Otherwise, we would not have AI data centers running all over the place. We would not be giving money to foreign nations when we don't have money. We'd be solving internal problems. I think people would, generally speaking, agree with that. If there was a voting solution, or as somebody likes to say, if voting actually mattered, they wouldn't let us do it. That's just my take. It doesn't mean you have to agree with me, and it doesn't mean that you need to go out and ignore polls or voting or whatever else. If you want to be part of it, knock yourself out. I don't care. It doesn't affect me at all. So don't argue with me. I'm telling you where my mind is, unless you have some sort of dramatic evidence that I'm not aware of, in which case, yeah, present it, please. I'm over on social media at Kyle Seraphin. You can find me. It's very easy to do. I'm happy to engage you on that topic. But I'm not comfortable with the idea that we're going to sit here and have Donald Trump give us a primetime speech in 2026, when he's been in office for 18 months, about the failure and potentially the foreign interference that came in and jacked with our elections in 2020, because you haven't done anything radically different. And it's my ongoing supposition that the alternative to Donald Trump in 2024, that the machine that runs this country, whatever it is, Tucker Carlson calls it a supra, like bigger than governmental sort of organization, whatever these people are, whatever the powers that have enough money to be able to solve these problems. I think they looked and just said, if we don't give the people Donald Trump, which we better compromise him too, if we don't give them Donald Trump, then they're going to kill us. And I think they were right. More on that in 1 second here, okay? But I do think that the weak version of Donald Trump, the watered down version of Donald Trump, actually fits into my theory quite well, because it doesn't seem to matter if you go out and vote or not. I'm sure your vote is there. The question is who's counting it? Does it make a difference when it gets into that black machine that you can't assess what's going on inside of it? I think that's made up. If you guys are watching on Rumble, give us a like. If you're watching over on YouTube, give us a like. Same thing. If you're watching on X, join us on one of the other platforms where you can see the live chat, which is running all day. Look at these people. They're just chatting about God knows what. Worried about AIPAC. You may hear an ad on the audio platforms right now. That's going to be on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Check it out right there. And if you haven't seen it, at KyleSeraphinShow.com, that's the easy way to get to it. You don't even need to download the Spotify app. I've had people reach out to me and they're like, there's some privacy concerns with the Spotify app. And that may be true. There's privacy concerns on all of them. You literally can watch it on the website. You'll get audio and you'll get video. So check that out. We'll read a little bit of this story here real quickly. Donald Trump is set to deliver a primetime address Thursday evening, during which he is expected to detail information that he has recently received from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. What have we talked about on this program that I think is very important? The Office of the Director of National Intelligence has maybe some investigative capabilities in the intelligence space, but not any criminal authorities. They don't have the ability to bring charges. So when someone tells you that they've investigated and they're using intelligence like this, are we going to see arrests? I was listening in a space the other day, and these guys were like, I really hope that while Donald Trump is speaking, the FBI is knocking and dragging people out, and they have some CNN-style Roger Stone video of people going to prison. You already know that's not going to happen. And I hate to be so confident about it, but I'm pretty confident about it. Just like I knew that the good guys would live and Halle Berry wasn't about to die in the crappy movie I watched the other day, which is called Moonfall. By the way, if you're thinking, hey, Moonfall is trending over on Amazon Prime, should I check it out? The answer is do not do this to your wife. Do not waste your time. This is all theatrical, okay? If you have the Office of Director of National Intelligence providing you with information about the 2020 election, then you are just summarizing that you're explaining now to people who don't care, and it will be completely irrelevant. Donald Trump, here it is. This is the editorial version of it. Donald Trump has pushed long debunked conspiracy theories to claim that his 2020 election loss was fraudulent. I think that there are bigger. The problem is he's such an imperfect vessel when he articulates it. When he talks about this, he's the worst guy to have it done. And this is actually why, broader speaking, this is why I didn't want Donald Trump as president. Yes, he was obviously the better alternative. All right. Okay. Kamala Harris, atrocious. Somebody was like, are you mad that Kamala Harris was there? Are you mad about Ketanji Jackson? It's like, yeah, of course. I don't want women running things like that. Those women in particular, but generally speaking, women. And that's not because I'm being mean. I like women. I just don't like them being in charge of me. I don't think it's safe or healthy or natural or good for them, to be fair. But deeply and aggressively speaking, Donald Trump was the worst guy for this particular job at the time that it came in. And here's why. If Donald Trump had stepped aside, let's say J.D. Vance is the heir apparent. I don't know who it was at that time. I don't know who was sufficiently MAGA for the MAGA people. Honestly, anybody that Donald Trump would have nominated or would have blessed off on would have been the right person. Okay? No question in my mind. And I said this at the time. You guys can go back. The only person that I know that would know what that was Rose Lopez. So maybe Rose will have a note of when I said this. But my statement in 2023, right before Donald Trump announced, but it was really obvious he was going to announce. That's when we started doing episodes about Jumanji, like the game has started, so it has to be finished, but I wish it wasn't him. If he had passed down his imprimatur and said, this is my heir apparent, this is the MAGA guy, and he's going to come in and solve all the problems, I have been, my reputation has been damaged so aggressively that people on the left look at me and they feel, what does he call it? TDS. They are deranged about Donald Trump specifically. If he had gone in at that time and just said, I no longer can be the guy, I'm not able, but this person represents everything that we, the MAGA people, believe. He's going to do all the things that we want. He's going to come in from the same framework, and he's going to get justice for me and my family, but you can't do it yourself. There's nothing worse than being like, I'm in charge, and so I've said that I've been wronged, and so I'm going to create this solution for myself. It looks weak. It also, it's kind of like we've had this moment where I have advocated that some people get a spot on, let's say, a Tucker Carlson show, which is a huge audience, whether you like it or not. Okay. I've advocated that certain people should be in place. I've reached out and on behalf of friends of mine that have stories that need to be told, I've shared it with people that are in Joe Rogan's orbit, for example. You should really talk to this guy. There's a huge difference between somebody from the outside saying, I'm representing this person and they're great, and you should really listen to them, and saying, please, have this interview. I want something good for this person, versus I want something good for me. And Donald Trump has never been able to see that. Donald Trump always thinks that he's going to be the best person to represent Donald Trump. And it turns out having a proxy is actually far, far superior a lot of the time. He's pushed long debunked conspiracy theories. Imagine if somebody else came in and said, I believe that what happened to Donald Trump was wrong, that America was defrauded, and we're going to get to the bottom of this. And I'm not Donald Trump, so it doesn't sound the same. That would have been the move. It was the move in 23. And by the time he stepped in and said, yeah, it's going to be me, then it was too late. And so now we're in this moment where we're just dealing with it. And we have to have Donald Trump primetime speeches on a Thursday night in the middle of July, a year and a half into his term. Sources caution that Trump's plans could always change, but at this point, election fraud is his number one topic. So you've got people out there that are seeding the waters with what they're going to talk about. Thursday is, it doesn't get any bigger, because without free and fair elections, you don't have a country. Without free and fair elections, we're going to go to you're going to make me tap the sign, but number 19, secure the elections, same-day voting, voter identification, paper ballots, proof of citizenship, etc. Do we have that? Were they able to prioritize that? No. Is anyone going to jail? No. Is the FBI out there taking people down? No. Are there people inside the FBI that are currently resisting this stuff? Yes. And we've reported on it. There was a husband and wife team out of Atlanta, both analysts, the exact people that I would expect that would not be into it. Should they be fired for it? Probably not, unless they were doing something that was insubordinate, unless there was an actual reason to do it. But you're supposed to have people be safe if they act as whistleblowers. The allegation that came out of the Atlanta field office the other day, these two FBI people that were fired, who I assume will get their jobs back. I assume that they will also win their lawsuits against this administration. They claimed basically that this was a violation of rule, policy, or law. That's technically what a whistleblower is. And as someone who has a vested interest in seeing whistleblowers, especially in the federal government, especially in law enforcement, treated properly, even people that disagree with me, you should do things the right way. And I don't think they did. The other interesting piece about this story is coming from CBS. And CBS, their lead headline, which I'll show you real quickly, looks right here. Trump to allege Chinese meddling in the U.S. elections in primetime speech. This is what sources are telling the people like Jennifer Jacobs, apparently at CBS News. Part of President Trump's speech Thursday night is expected to touch on previously unreported alleged Chinese meddling in U.S. elections. That actually sounds very credible. It also sounds like something we're not going to do anything about. Right? What are we going to do about it? The danger of having a free and open society is that you will have access to things that, might leave you vulnerable. We have a free and open society where if you wanted to, most counties in the United States will give you a tour of things like their water filtration, of their 911 system, of their electrical grid. I kid you not, you can sign up for, because the Chinese government is really good about doing this. They do what are called scientific delegations, where they will come and they will visit our infrastructure. We will host them all the time. Why we do it? I have no idea. Have I advocated against it? 100%. Am I doing the question thing that JD Vance does? I want you to recognize it. We do this all the time. We will invite enemy nations into our backyard and show them our stuff. We will publicize our geospatial information on the web, and anybody can look at it. They can see where the lines are run. They can see where the disruptive nodes are. There's a lot of problems. And we're totally okay with that. We are very exposed to the Chinese specifically. And by the way, that's too late. That's too late. They have all that information. You're not going to change all your infrastructure at your community level. So the idea that we would be exposed to these things, it's 100% the case that we are regularly exposed. We have a free, theoretically, more free than not, an open internet society. So are we going to get Chinese bots that are trying to go out there and create AI personalities that are subverting and coming after us with information that causes us to feel one way or another? I mean, these information ops are legit. There are heavy-handed human versions of it, and then there's these very sophisticated, long-form, long-term. This is something that Steve Baker was reporting on when he was at The Blaze. He and I have talked about it. Joe Kent was alluding to it with the story of Charlie Kirk. The question is who's in these chat rooms? Who's in these Reddit discussion boards? Who's in our YouTube chat if it doesn't require a verification? Who's sitting over on X that's posting at you, or on Facebook, which is very infiltrated by this stuff? Is that person real? And the answer a lot of times is no, it's not. And it's posting information very subtly to lead you to certain things. One component, allegations that Beijing compromised U.S. VOTA data and evidence the CIA knew about the actions but didn't share that information with Mr. Trump in his first term. I'm going to say that is most likely the case. But the problem is if Donald Trump is talking about it, he's not announcing that the FBI is kicking down doors or shutting down companies or anything else like this. And I don't know how you fix it unless you do something like the Save America Act, which may be on the edge of what's constitutional. You're telling the states from a federal level what is required of their state level elections. And yet, too many states, they're operating under their own rules, and the rules are just willy-nilly. And you don't need to be able to prove who you are to be able to vote, which is crazy, because the left would have you prove who you are if you want a gun, if you want to buy booze, if you want to buy cigarettes, if you want to buy pornography, theoretically. I guess that's still a thing. I don't know. Do people still buy dirty magazines in liquor stores and so on? I think they do. maybe that stopped 25 years ago. Or my references from when I was in high school and that they existed. I guess I haven't gone and looked and seen that, but I think they're out there. The audience for this primetime speech is expected to include members of the president's cabinet. Shocker. Again, Donald Trump loves surrounding himself with people who love him. Invited are the heads of the CIA, the FBI, the Office of Director of National Intelligence. I guess that's going to be Bill Pulte, since they're working on confirmation of the other. Homeland Security, Mark Wayne Mullen will be there. Kash Patel. It's going to be a clown show, right? Asked for comments about the contents of the president's address, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt, who is ignoring her baby and doing exactly what lefties would have her do, which is ignore her baby, leave her babies with someone else, and move on and hang out at the White House to do a job that anybody else could do. Literally anybody else could do that job. She said, quote, I'm going to get to that in a second. Quote, as usual, anonymous sources are speculating about what President Trump will say during his speech on Thursday evening. The truth is nobody knows yet what President Trump will ultimately say, which is why everyone should tune in. Dumb. That is high-level slop stuff. And it's probably exactly what he's going to be talking about. The funniest thing about Donald Trump, though, is if you say that, then he'll end up doing something completely different. just to be a turd. All right. What else is happening out there in the meantime? We got some other interesting stuff going on. Apparently, we're still winning. You guys probably didn't know this, but NBC is reporting that we just got a Iranian-held hostage. So that's pretty exciting. The winning that will continue, the fighting that is going to go on is it's increasing, I suppose. The United States can't rule out a ground campaign, so maybe he'll announce that we're going to war with Iran and we're going to send troops in. He says probably not, which doesn't hold any weight to me. This was an interview he did, I think, day before yesterday, asking questions about what's next. You going to send people in there? Do we need to get on the ground? Donald Trump announced, along with the lawyer for this woman, that Iran has allowed an American citizen, capital A, capital C, American citizen who was wrongfully detained in December of 2024 under the presidency of Sleepy Joe Biden to leave the country, capital C, referring to Iran. No idea why. Donald Trump and his capitalization, I feel like this is how you know it's Donald Trump. She is now, or it's someone that's impersonating Donald Trump, and they just think that Donald Trump does retarded things like capitalize random words. She is now safely outside of Iran and in good condition. The United States of America appreciates this gesture of goodwill. Goodwill is capitalized by Iran. Donald Trump wrote on Truth Social without naming who this person is. The winning. Are we going to send some troops in? Is that what tonight's thing is? It's possible, I suppose.
Foolish, but I'll tell you about Cargill. And so we've already...
Are you ruling out a ground campaign in a limited capacity?
I don't want to say that either, but I would say no if I thought it was appropriate. I'd say sometimes you need a ground campaign, but we have other people that will do the ground campaign for us. But we already hit Cargill, as you know, twice. Even 3 times. I said, hit everything but the oil. Just leave that little area from 25 yards out. Leave that little area. Don't touch the oil. Because I don't want that in terms of the world economy. It's a chunk of the world economy. So we haven't hit that. At some point we could. But I think it's unlikely. as far as taking it is concerned, if we degrade them far enough and deep enough back, I would do that.
Do you anticipate
telling people about this in your speech at night? I hope he comes out and does the full Donald Trump True Social thing where he calls them crazy bastards and just does weird stuff. Because I just feel like it's all theater. So if we're going to do theater, let's like make an entertaining theater. Nobody wants like a low dose, low energy WWE experience, right? Like you would not want to go to WWE and watch them kind of just like phone it in. I want them to come out and say wild stuff, like maybe some freaking fire. Maybe you can get Erica Kirk there in the sequins. You could do the fireworks. You get Kid Rock, who's getting older, but maybe he'll come in and like get aggressive. Donald Trump should lean into the idea that he has like more money than God, so he should do some like real like ritzy, expensive stuff. That'd be fun. Like, let's just do fun. Let's just have fun if we're going to do stupid stuff. It's an option. Again, I think it's theatrical. Here's low energy theater. You guys want to see low energy theater? This is Rand Paul. So quick note on the Rand Paul thing. I met Rand Paul. He has really goofy looking bodyguards. His bodyguards were not threatening. They looked kind of they actually looked kind of WWE. Rand Paul, the senator, was in Las Vegas when I was there. My friend Jim Erdman, who was a whistleblower to Rand Paul's committee and showed up and testified. He's an American hero. He talked about COVID origins. He talked about election interference, a bunch of stuff that Tulsi Gabbard's director, the initiative group, was working on over at ODNI. Jim just retired from the CIA. So Rand Paul knows who he is by sight. Rand Paul does not know who I am by sight, which is fine, totally fine with me. So Jim asked for a picture, and the two of us went and posed with Rand Paul. He's maybe the most measured, low energy, minimally excited human being that I've ever stood next to. And if you guys love him, you love the idea of him, not the reality. He's very similar in my experience to Tim Burchett, who was also wildly unimpressive in person. When I met Tim Burchett, he was like, "Nice to meet you. Shake his hand." It's just, and Rand Paul, his tone never changed. His inflection never changed. His energy never went up. He was never like, "Oh, hey, Jim, it's like so good to see you." It was just like, "Well, Jim," he literally didn't, he was atonal through every single person that I saw standing and taking pictures with him, people that he knew, people that he didn't know. Ugh, boring. So it doesn't surprise me that his theater is not impressive. This is him asking James O'Keefe, which is already unserious, about election fraud, which is also unserious because it's a Senate hearing. Are we going to get some movement on there? No. This is how I know. Because they do hearings. You can almost set your watch by it. If there is a senatory hearing, if there's a House hearing, and they're discussing a topic, that topic is functionally dead. It has moved out of the law enforcement realm. It has moved out of the functional realm. It has moved out of the we're going to take any action on it realm. And we've moved into the I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to talk about it in the driest, slowest, most boring way for only the most nerdy people. And the people who watch this, if they're cheering for it, they're also retarded. This is where the narrative victory maybe gets made, but nothing real comes out of these things. Here's the hearing. The hearing, the announcement of the hearing is actually the only action that matters. And sometimes some clips. Here's a clip. My buddy David, Viva Fry, posted this, and he was like, "This is amazing." It's like, come on, bro. Stop with the cheerleading. Stop pretending. He likes James O'Keefe, so maybe that's why.
Our next witness is James O'Keefe. He's an American investigative journalist and media entrepreneur. He's the founder of Project Veritas and currently serves as the founder and CEO of O'Keefe Media Group.
That is there's a lot of words carrying a lot of weight in that particular introduction, and it was a short one.
Mr. O'Keefe.
Chairman Paul, Ranking Member Peters, and members of this committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify. In February of 2026, I disguised myself as a homeless person.
Sorry. How do you take this guy seriously? I disguised myself as a homeless person. Oh, God. Here we go.
And approached a petition circulator on Skid Row near San Pedro and South 6th Street in downtown L.A. I saw cash clipped to his shirt, which I thought was odd. The petition circulator told me, "We're going to need 14 signatures and we're going to pay you $2. One of our reporters, disguised as a heroin addict with
James actually has a storyboard for this. I guarantee you that he sketched this thing out. They wrote up a script. They cast it. They did like makeup, and he wrote like heroin addict, disguised as a heroin addict.
Track marks on his arm, asked the homeless,
Yeah, track marks on his arm. Because they were committed.
what's going on here? They all replied with one word, money. We recorded a woman named Brown handing over cash as payment in exchange for a homeless person to register to vote in a federal election. Now that is a federal crime. Congress expressly criminalizes payments to people to register to vote. Why? Because the vote is sacred. It's an act of conscience, of judgment. And when it becomes contaminated by incentives, when it is for sale, it undermines the sanctity and fairness of the process designed to elect those who represent us. Our investigation contributed to a federal criminal prosecution, with U.S. Attorney Bill Asalia saying, once I saw these videos, I went to work. Brown described the whole thing as a, quote, pyramid game. And then came the irony. In a neighborhood of NGOs in Los Angeles designed to protect the vulnerable homeless population, the person being confronted by the NGOs was not the fraudster, it was the reporter exposing the fraud. Just minutes after we exposed these felonies, I was approached by a man who identified himself as being with the LAPD, and he began to record me. When I pressed him, he admitted he was actually with the LA Homelessness Authority. Under California law, that's a crime. So this was also a form of fraud, albeit covering up for the fraud happening across the street. But it got worse. We witnessed petition circulators giving marijuana in exchange for signatures on the petitions. And when they spotted our camera, they told one of our reporters, I'm going to knock your bleeping ass. Don't come over here again. I'm going to beat your ass.
And so this is the end of our story. And everyone is dead from AIDS. It took from me my best friend, my only true pal, my only bright star. Well, I'm gonna march on Washington, lead the fight and charge the brigades. There's a hero inside of all of us. I'll make them see everyone has AIDS. My father, AIDS. My sister, AIDS. My uncle and my cousin and her best friend, AIDS. The gays and the straights and the whites and the spades. Everyone has AIDS. My grandma and my dog go blue. The Pope has got it, and so do you. Come on, everybody, we got quilting to do. We're gonna break down these barricades. Everyone has AIDS, 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 AIDS.
I can't not see that every time I see him talk. And look, that wasn't the actual audio from there, but it worked perfectly. So, and that was the actual video from there. If you guys missed out on the video, what you missed out on was James O'Keefe and a bunch of people dancing on stage at some sort of America Fest thing. This was the one before I got there. And then they told me, hey, we're going to have a bunch of people dancing behind you dressed up as FBI agents. And I was like, the F you are? Like, they're going to arrest all of us for impersonating federal agents. Are you out of your damn mind? This goes back to December of 2022. I almost didn't speak with him on stage. And I had to talk. There's literally people that have gone out there. They're like, I had to talk Kyle Seraphin off the ledge. I'm like, no, you didn't. You just had to not do retarded stuff. Everything about that guy is fake and gay. So for all you that love him, sorry. I've got a million funny clips on my thing, but that one's the best. So yes, that was a South Park bit, making fun of the movie or the show Rent, but it fits perfectly. It fits perfectly. All right. Since we're talking about kind of like loony lib women and effeminate whatevers, let's do Jennifer Welch, and then we'll work in some other stuff too. Jennifer Welch is a far-left podcaster. I always find that funny when they label people this way. Far-left podcaster. She's blasting homeschool as trickle-down stupidity and a fundamentally Christian problem. I'm not actually sure that it was Jennifer Welch who said that, although she gets credit for it. So there she is, the picture of the lady. Co-hosts Jennifer Welch and Angie Sullivan, two otherwise forgettable and unimportant women. They are part of the far-left, quote, I've had it podcast, condemn homeschooling as weird as F and the worst idea during their show, which took place on Tuesday, 2 days ago. Their comments were in response to a caller to the show complaining about, quote, morons attempting to homeschool their children and why they probably shouldn't even have children to start with. Well, these ladies are pretty big on abortion, from what I can tell. They love the idea of being able to kill off your child. So it checks that they would be upset about anyone having kids. I think unless you are killing said kids, I guess we'll just play what they said. We'll see how relatable this is to you guys. This one looks... Yeah, all right. I've got about 5 clips of these people. So let's just kind of touch it for a few minutes here. Here we go.
You would not believe how many people in Bible study homeschool their kids. And you just think, I worry about that. And then you see those witness booklets or whatever they're called that the Duggars use, and they're like top out at 8th grade. I mean, I just think homeschooling is a bad idea from soup to nuts. I don't care if you're a nuclear physicist. I think it's just fucking weird as fuck that you want your kids around you all day, every day, and all night. And just the socialization. For me personally, it was that I would have gotten up on my hands and knees and strapped them to my back and crawled to get them to school every day, just to get them where I wasn't. So I don't trust somebody that wants to be with their kids 24/7. I think a lot of dumb people do it because it's just easier.
All right. She would have crawled with her children on her back to make sure that her kids were not around her. Is that not saying the quiet part out loud? And then they do it because it's easier. Is anybody that's homeschools, please put me a comment below about just how easy it is for you to homeschool. As someone who is watching homeschooling happening in my house and watching my wife do it, who, by the way, is smarter than both of these women by a lot and is a better person, light years better than either of these people. This woman's name is Angie Sullivan. And Angie Sullivan is not Jennifer Welch. So Jennifer Welch is actually taking the hit for this because she does make some comments. But most of the comments that are being made are not Jennifer Welch. They're this woman, Angie Sullivan, who seems dumb as shit. And she's foul-mouthed in a way that is really unattractive on a woman. It's not funny. This is angry, bitter, gross, ugly, former Christian, maybe had some problem somewhere. We're going to let this finish. I'm going to tell you exactly why I think this is the problem in a second, but you guys can already guess.
And that's a concern. And I've had divorce cases that, like, moms get mad at dad. They're fighting over whose school district the kid's going to use their address. They put them on homeschool. It's like 2 or 3 hours a day at the computer, and then the kids are going just off to the races. So I just can't think of very many good things about homeschooling.
Noted. You're going to be shocked to find out that this horrible bitch, and that's the only way to describe this person, is divorced. As is her buddy. They're both divorced. They're both divorced women. And so maybe this goes to a broader conversation that we will have in the near future. There is a thing that needs to happen. The yin and the yang, the balance. Men, we have a lot of bad ideas. You know that we do. Don't act like we don't. We've got tons of bad ideas. And a lot of times we'll say those bad ideas to our spouse who's like, honey, that may not be the best way to accomplish what you're trying to do. And you go, what do you know anyway? And then you walk off and you're like, she's probably right. That's probably not the best thing. I probably shouldn't do that thing. Women, you require men in your life. It turns out there's a biblical order of these things. You require men in your life. You should not be doing certain things that you don't have an aptitude to do. I'm going to give you a quick example of that. But there are men that were like done with these women, walked away, and then they were left to their own devices. And then the worst thing was they got the unlimited budget of making decent money so they could do whatever it was. And then they were encouraged for saying horrible stuff. So they've learned the worst possible lessons. I'm going to play you some of the awful clips there because I think they're fun. But before we do, I can also imagine if the world were to fall apart, which is a real possibility, they would end up in this space. This is a video taken, it's from surveillance camera of a woman working on a tire. And we're just going to come in at the end. She was getting advice from her AI bot, which doesn't always give you the best information.
You're totally right. That's my bad. You should absolutely remove the Schrader valve and wait for the tire to fully deflate before removing the real half-through bolts. My apologies, and let me know if you need help working on anything else.
That dead air is me looking at a woman who looks like she might be dead. She's just laying there because she got smoked by the tire. Because maybe AI will not replace a husband and someone who loves you. Right? These women are awful. And again, the woman who got called out on it, she's not actually the one who did it. So that's kind of unfair that Jennifer Welch, far left podcaster, blasts Homeschool. I don't think she was the one who actually said those bits. It was actually her buddy, Angie Sullivan, who goes by something. What is her handle? It's something awful. It's like pumps. I didn't know anything about these people, and I figured I should since I went to school in Oklahoma and I have some Oklahoma roots in that way. Their comments were in response to a caller because they take calls. The Sullivan quickly seized on the caller's comments and remarking that she worried about people in Bible study. And I went like, well, what's that all about? What is her experience with Bible study? Why is she talking about that as a thing? And then I had to go look into it. Her name is Angie Pumps Sullivan. That is not a good nickname, ladies. If somebody calls you Pumps, you're not friends with them. She's an Oklahoma-based co-host of the hit podcast I've Had It. It's just angry, divorced women. Bizarre. She was raised, I love this, with a strong Christian background and formerly taught Bible study at an Oklahoma City megachurch. A couple of major flags in that. Number one, former. That's a problem. Two, she's obviously leaning on, so she's doing the appeal to authority. I was in there and let me decode these evil people. The other one is an avowed atheist. Her other buddy is an avowed atheist and grew up as an atheist. Her dynamic co-host had a religious background that famously contrasts against, Jennifer Welch, who was raised by progressive atheists. Shocker. They both ended up in the same place. Miserable, ugly, soulless, divorced. And having just come out of this moment in Las Vegas with my buddy George Hill, we had a really funny moment talking to this woman who was an atheist who would have fit right into that category. I don't know if she was divorced or not, but George just looked at her and he just said, there's no reason to argue with you because you're never going to understand what we're talking about. If you're not a Christian, you can't figure this out. If you don't even understand Christian values or why they're better, then you're not going to be able to figure this out. You're going to just wonder, why can't we fix this? And the answer is because you don't understand that maybe there's no fixing involved. We'll get right back to that in a second. Give us a like on Rumble, YouTube. You guys may hear a audio ad that comes in on the platforms. It comes from the folks over at Spotify at KyleSeraphinShow.com. Just leave that little space. Check it out, KyleSeraphinShow.com. By all means, like, share, subscribe if you have not done so already on our program, on our channels. This is fun. This is actually the argument against the megachurch, by the way. That may be uncomfortable for some of you. Obviously, I come from a perspective of growing up in the Catholic Church. I think the Catholics and I think the Orthodox have probably the claim. Everybody else, your claim is very, very late in coming. And I don't know what a mega church believes, but I'm fairly confident if you're just winging it and it's based on charisma and the size of the audience and some of these people, there's a lot of sketchy stuff that goes on in there. And so maybe you do get some bad theology taught, probably pretty likely. Sullivan grew up in a heavily religious suburb of Oklahoma City. I don't know specifically which one, but it really doesn't matter. Because I've been in those places, that there are many, many, many good-hearted people there. And they're going to churches that are based on charisma and excitement and maybe some really weak theology. And like, what is it that is giving somebody the authority to get up there and even preach? Not that they need authority, but they do need to have some sort of knowledge. And so you end up with dumb people leading the dumb people, which is exactly, I think, happening right here. It's no different on the political left. These women are not educated. They're not smart. They don't know what they're talking about. They're speaking ignorantly about homeschooling as a general rule, which is kind of embarrassing. And they've got all this sort of information to share about it. And it's just their opinions. It essentially has almost nothing to do. These ladies have some other really bad takes too. So we'll play a couple of those because they're actually really fun. I haven't dunked on people on the political left in a while, so we'll do that for a moment. Yeah. Jennifer Welch.
This shit is worse than you think in these white Christian cultures. It is the megachurch white Christian private school shit. They are raising these kids to be little KKK haters. I call them hate academies. That's what I call all the little Christian schools in Oklahoma, little hate academies, because homophobia and racism are on the curriculum.
Sorry, what? They're humorless, you know? This kind of harpy attitude, it's wild that they get so upset. And then the best thing is you'll get people on the political right that'll go and they'll just do the superficial piece. They're like, this lady is dumb. She has a bad take. It's like, no, where's it come from? It comes from somebody failed to put in the normal stops. There was no guy that was like, hey, it's pretty unappealing to watch you shrilly yell. The sad thing is there tends to be an audience for this. And it's this echo chamber, just like we have echo chambers on the political right. I'll show you one actually. The Fox News audience, I think, is equally bad, and they do the same sort of thing. This is This is a Fox News example of the same thing, where everybody is going to just say, I mean, what even is that? And so we all affirm that we all believe the same things, even though nobody is critically thinking. If you're not reading stuff that you disagree with, then you're a fool. I do it every morning on purpose. I actually go out and seek out sources of things that I think are bad information because I want to know what people are reading. And I want to know, do they have any good points in their bad information that generally has an editorial bias? I can see the bias. It doesn't bother me. I'm happy to talk about it. You guys may or may not see it. Fine, whatever. Fox News is doing the exact same thing as the Jennifer Welch types. It's let me cater to what you want to hear. And I said at the end of yesterday's program, allow me to give you your opinion in my voice. Don't you like it? Click, share, subscribe. I regularly will hurt your feelings. I see it in the chat. You guys are pissed because I don't like James O'Keefe. I think he's a dirtbag. And I've met him more than you, most likely. I've spent more time around James O'Keefe than most of you. My wife doesn't like James O'Keefe. She thinks he's a dirtbag. I value her opinion of people more than I value your opinion of him if you don't know him. And that's okay. You don't have to agree with me. You can be like, I still think he's doing good stuff. Fine. Not going to fight you about it. Agree to disagree politely. At least consider that there are other people who think other things. If you live in an echo chamber where you can't hear anything else and we just lampoon, like you make fun of the name of something without knowing what the thing is. This is Drop Site News. Drop Site News is Ryan Grimm's outfit. They say some things that have been criticized as being anti-Semitic, but so has Thomas Massey. So apparently just saying things that are America oriented and criticizing things that go on in Israel, that can be your issue. This is Fox News just lampooning it because what is this? And then you have this imperfect, they bring on kind of a ditzy person. Jessica Tarloff does this all the time where she kind of plays the foil of like, I'm a dumb person from the left so you can beat up on me. Occasionally she actually gets some hits in. This doesn't sound like it's one of them. So this is what the other side echo chamber looks like.
No.
There's
family
Jesse
show,
Waters.
Jessica, family show.
No, but okay.
Yeah, moving
On
along.
a serious note, Drop Site News just I mean, I can barely do this now.
What?
Okay, so Drop Site News just published.
What is Drop Site News?
It's
Guys, this constitutes mainstream, I guess, infotainment on Fox News. I don't know how people watch this.
New
Jesse, are you
Intercept with
okay?
Ryan
Okay.
Either way, okay, it's something that I made. It's a real site.
Okay.
Anyway, they have a piece out about an Iranian official who told them that Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are abusing their insider status for personal gain. We have talked about how much money they're making.
An Iranian said that?
I love that you said that.
You told that to who?
That was
Drop Site News?
What's so funny about this is that that's exactly what you guys said to me when I talked about the MOU, right? That was allegedly leaked. And J.D. Vance, the vice president, sat next to me and said that I was parroting Iranian propaganda. And guess what? That MOU was word for word what it actually turned out to be. Yep. So you can mock me all that you want.
Okay.
Okay.
I will.
Well, let's wait for the commercial break for more mocking and get Ken.
Good thing we got Jesse Waters. That guy does nothing but hard-hitting news. Isn't that right? I mean, he's probably the best out there.
Kamikaze dolphins.
And we've got the backpack, and we've done all these other things. All we do is slopaganda. Huh, you're talking about what the Iranians think? Dropside News has some pretty good information. They were the first people that I saw that were pointing out that there was Israeli connections at the governmental level with Jeffrey Epstein's apartment in New York. They wrote that up. I covered the story here. I think when people have good news, you should look at it and you should read it. You should assess whether or not the credibility is there. Do they have the access and placement? Do they have documents or evidence to back up their findings? And turns out, Dropsite News does some good stuff. Do they have some other things that's probably not great? Maybe. I don't know. The stuff that's gone through my filter, it's credible. It may not make you feel good. You may not like the slant they take on it. So what? Assess the information for the value. Or be Jesse Waters and just be smug and cheat on your spouse and go pick up a younger intern or something at your job and bang somebody you work with. You could do that too, whatever you want. You could just take them seriously. Again, the sad thing is that there's nobody that's conserving anything on the political right. While we're talking about sort of the Israel issue, because I think it actually is kind of funny, this kind of exploded across my feed. It will be a small thing. This is why I have a problem with people immediately smearing and saying, well, you're an anti-Semite, you're not saying anything. Listen to what Tom Massey said the other day. This is a kind of a moment. There was a couple of news stories in the late afternoon yesterday discussing that Democrats have kind of broken the shackles of the we must vote for Israel thing. And that is a real thing where people like by instinct will just say yes to all things Israel. And we've covered this here. I don't assign it to the highest value of anything out there. Whenever I talk to people, I think the Chinese threat is more real, which is probably why Donald Trump should be talking about it. Maybe not Donald Trump, but somebody should be talking about the Chinese threat being legit. The people that look in and they focus in on, they go, everything about Israel equals bad, scary, dangerous, whatever, controlling America. I don't think that's true, but I do think they have an outsized say based on their size. And so has Donald Trump said that. And people have been saying this for, over 30 years, maybe 40 years. So we'll kind of give you a retrospective in a second. But you listen to Tom Massey, because the way that we get rid of people is the same way you get rid of their opinions, is the same way you get rid of them with Jesse Waters doing it. We lampoon them. We say that they're a buffoon. We get an imperfect vessel to give out the message. Oh, it's Dropsite News, so obviously it's not credible because it's not Fox News and it's not something I've heard of. They would have done the same thing, by the way, if she said MS Now, which legitimately it's left wing, but their information is regularly good. You don't like the way they cover it. It doesn't mean they're wrong. This is Tom Massey on the floor talking about America needs to go on a diet. That's true in many ways. He's talking specifically about the Israeli bit. So here we go.
Roads and bridges. We've got a shortfall in that fund. We've got our locks and dams that we're perpetually trying to figure out new funding mechanisms to come up with. And we've got homeless veterans. And we're sending more money to Israel in this bill than we spend on homeless veterans in this country. Just to put it in perspective, there are 3,000 counties in this country. And if you divide that into $3 billion, that's $1 million from every county. This is not a significant amount of money that is going overseas.
I think he meant insignificant. But he's talking about the difference between spending money on infrastructure and then sending money over to a small country of 9 million people living pretty well, it sounds like.
So I think we should stop it. We should put them on a diet. They're the biggest welfare recipient of the United States and have been for many years. $310 billion has been received by Israel from the taxpayers of the United States. That's in inflation-adjusted dollars since we've been giving them money. And that's why I think this amendment is important, and I reserve the balance of my time.
So there you go. He's talking about what? The thing that Donald Trump ran on, being America first. It just turns out that it gets on the wrong side of things. And he also mentioned going on a diet, which means that Randy Fine was called out. Randy Fine is a famously pro-Israel member of the House. And so he's this super fat guy from Florida, grossly fat, I would say. So you can see the diet thing being a problem. The fact of the matter is America is in a bad space financially. And if we have money to burn, why are we not burning it on people that live in this country? There are plenty of people that are
stricken.
Ooh.
Stricken.
Yep.
You're stricken. Poverty stricken.
Maybe you guys would like to not see your money go over that way. Maybe you don't want to have, your tax dollars being sent over to another nation when we still have problems here, which I think is reasonable. Here's Massey's closing argument.
I would like to close by saying that Israel has the strongest economy in the Middle East.
This is the
key. Their debt per GDP is in much better shape than ours. They don't need our money. In fact, they've claimed recently they want to get off of the welfare. But I'm concerned that the other funding mechanisms they're talking about, or commingling our technology and supply chains, will have even less transparency than what's going on here today. So I'm opposed to that as well. I'm opposed to all foreign aid. I didn't pick on Israel here. I've offered an amendment to defund Egypt and also to defund the aid to Jordan, which will...
Wait, what did he just say? He just said he's opposed to all foreign aid? Weird. Kind of like he wants to do things for America first. I can get behind that.
We'll talk about in a little bit. But I am particularly concerned this year about the foreign aid to Israel. There have been 70,000 casualties in Gaza, and I don't think we should be part of that. American taxpayers should not be conscripted into funding the military adventures of Israel. And I urge adoption of my amendment. And with that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back.
And that is how you find yourself kicked out on a primary. How is that guy who's saying something that seems pretty reasonable to people that are conservative, even if you like Israel, it's like, okay, well, at least that's a principle that we can understand. The principle is I want to defund Egypt. I want to defund our money to everywhere. It just turns out that the largest recipient is one country, and so we can focus in on that specifically, and I think that's not a good idea. And by the way, they're doing some things that I think are morally atrocious, which you can disagree with in good faith. Say, no, I think that they're justified. It's like, cool, they should do it without our money. Has this been a problem for a long time? I bet you guys have not heard this one. I'm like chronically and hyper-focused on things that happen on American social media. This made a little run this morning. This is Pat Buchanan. I want you guys to guess what year it is. That's the best answer. Why don't you guess what year this clip is from, where he's discussing an attempted gotcha question about funding Israel. And also listen to the amount of money we're talking about per year in that year. And I'll tell you what it is in a second.
You've also said that Congress is an Israeli-occupied territory. Now, what do you mean by that?
I said on the McLaughlin Group in response to a question, Jim, they said, do you think that the Congress of the United States will resist this demand for further aid? I said, threw out a crack at her. I said, no, the Congress of the United States is Israeli-occupied territory. What I meant by that is the most powerful lobby in Washington, which Congress can't stand up to, one of the most powerful, is certainly the pro-Israeli lobby. It has gotten its way in this town year in and year out. And I don't think the automatic votes of the Congress of the United States for $3 and $4 billion worth of aid to Israel are necessarily in the national interest of the United States. And that comment, which is to ridicule the subservience of the Congress of the United States, is perfectly valid.
All right, we're going to go to the chat here and take a look. The year 1900, that's funny. 1990, says Rezo. We got 1994, 2002, 92, 87, the 80s, 91, 86. That's on one side here. And then on the YouTube side, looks like the same kind of stuff you guys are coming up with. 1983, the 80s, 82, etc. Someone says 1990. That was in June of 1990. So that was what, 36 years ago? And we were talking about $3 and $4 billion a year in cash at that point, which is an incredible amount of money in 1990. And Pat Buchanan was being called out as being a bigot. And here we are in 2026, and we're still talking about this idea. And we're in the middle of a conflict that engages American forces. We're talking about blending some logistical supply chains and intelligence sharing with the Israelis using the National Defense Authorization Act, which is a must pass. We must pass it. We've got to do it. We've got to fund the troops. And also, like, whatever other shitty ideas you have, you guys know that there are two things that basically our Congress always uses to hide all the worst crap. They attach it to fund the troops. So the NDAA, which is an annual thing they have to pass, that's the appropriation for our national defense. And they'll do it in an omnibus bill. The federal government will punch in this huge, monstrous version of whatever our budget looks like. And weirdly enough, like, we did have this guy who got put into the Speaker of the House seat on purpose. The Speaker's chair was filled with a guy named Mike Davis, who we call Smithers here. He's like Smithers from The Simpsons, and Mr. Burns would be Donald Trump. Although Donald Trump is not very Burnsian, but Smithers is very Smithers. The crazy thing is that they promised that we were going to get single line item appropriation bills. We were going to get one item at a time that the American people could look at and say, this is what my elected representative is voting for on this one thing. The way they do it, this is why I don't think our elections are real. It's another great reason. You guys have been seeing it literally your whole lifetimes. I don't care how old you are. This is what you've seen. Our Congress puts things together where they go, I didn't like this provision, but Congress is about compromise. We're a collegiate organization. In fact, we all face the front. This is actually the way the founders saw it. That's why the layout, if you guys have never seen this, the layout of the American Congress is specific. It is semicircular, so everybody is coming from different perspectives, but looking in roughly the same direction from a different angle. That was on purpose, the design of that building. You can look at other places that are parliamentary, and they are one side and the other side, and they face each other across the line. If you guys don't know this thing, this is the major difference between the American Congress and the way the British parliamentary system works and others that are parliamentary. They set themselves up as adversarial overseas. Here we are set up as what's called a collegiate. That's actually the layout. It's a design name. And when you have people on the other side, they're facing directly at you, it's where the expression toe the line comes from. In the British parliamentary system, there is a line on the floor in the House of Commons that you are not allowed to cross. And when you do cross it, they yell, the gentleman must toe the line. That means you must step back behind the line. And the distance between the lines, this is sort of like the fable or whatever, the legend, is that it's the distance of a man's arm plus a man's sword times 2 plus 1 feet, 1 foot. So that you cannot cross swords, which you're not allowed to do, and people used to do. The idea that we had a small amount of violence early on in the American Congress, it's not supposed to happen. Because theoretically, we're all looking at the same problem from different angles. That's what they want to do. That's not what we do now. Now we just pass the same slop and everybody just says, well, I would love to vote against it, but we must do this one thing. We must feed the troops. We must make sure that they house the troops. We can't withdraw our support for the troops in the middle of a conflict in the war, a war that we shouldn't have. Right? We don't see it from the same angle. We don't have the same religion. We don't have the same values. This is the major problem with what's going on with people like Jennifer Welch. And the left doesn't have that big of a deal. They don't actually have to do that much right now because we are so divided as a nation. All they have to do is be the least crazy, which means don't talk. Whoever speaks the most loses, I would say, in current American politics, especially when you let your dumbest, most obnoxious, divorced, Ozempic weirdos in the middle of Central America, like central part of America in the heartland, if you let them talk. She is a minority in Oklahoma, hands down. She is a wealthy, gross, skeletal white woman. And she probably should not be thought of as a thought leader for anybody. But what she does is she provides these New York liberal types a person that's in Oklahoma. And they're like, see, even some people in Oklahoma are not just dumb backwards hicks. It's awful. It's an awful thought because, of course, they are dumb backwards hicks, which is to say that they're God-fearing Americans. And they are the ones who make this country work. I'll throw my lot in with the dumb, God-fearing hicks all day long. I like it. I like the rednecks. I like the hillbillies. I like people who can work with their hands that don't die because they're trying to change a tire. You know? This woman is haughty. She's the first wave that dies in the zombie apocalypse. Hands down. She's got heels on when it's time to put on running shoes. She's got makeup on and she's trying to get ready to look right when she runs out there because there might be a camera. She dies in the first wave. Hands down. You don't make it. They can't make it without the people that they despise. This is one of the reasons why I didn't end up moving to Vermont. A long time ago, I was looking at maybe leaving the world and building a bed and breakfast in Vermont. It's a really strange story. Don't worry about it. But my wife and I thought, hey, we're going to go to Vermont. It's the same thing I saw in Hawaii. It's one of the things that you'll find in a lot of lib areas, left-leaning areas that make no sense. They despise the very people that they rely on for existence. Imagine living in New York City and thinking what it would take for that city to tear itself apart. It would be a day without food trucks rolling in because there's no food grown in New York City. You're all dead if the people that you look down on don't serve you. And they could stop at any time, for all you know. This was one of the arguments being made in 2024. Why don't we just shut off the trucks? Why don't we just stop sending trucks in to places like New York City and see how they come out? It doesn't work. They all die. That's the purge for them. Then they see what they can do. And you find out that there's a couple of people like my wife's uncle who have like guns they're not supposed to have in the city of New York. I don't think there's a lot of guns hanging out in that city. Did you guys ever see that movie? There was a terrible movie. It was called, what was it called? Bed-Stuy? Brooklyn something. It was a Brooklyn neighborhood. I can't remember what it was. There was this goofy movie about the United Forces of Texas invading and trying to conquer New York. And so it was like New Yorkers fighting back. And it was like the Brooklyn hoodlums and the Harlem hoodlums like united, and the Hasidic Jews who had shotguns from their like diamond stores. It was all this silly like fantasy thoughts that they were somehow going to repel the evil invaders that were coming in body armor and kit and helmets and helicopters and shit. And like all these New Yorkers were going to like stand together and save everything. And you're like, no, you guys are going to tear each other apart limb from limb. The homeless people that James O'Keefe is impersonating are going to come kill you. There's no way that you survive. Like, you're living in a ridiculous area. This was what I saw in Brattleboro, Virginia, or Vermont when I was looking at moving. It was a group of people that on their own, they're done. They rely on tourist dollars and they hate tourists. This is liberals, I think. They rely on food and mechanical stuff from people who they despise, and they basically die without them. For those of you that are self-sufficient or relatively self-sufficient, or at least recognize the people that are out there that you rely on and you don't hate them, that's an infinitely better place to be. The self-loathing that has to come from like looking at other people, knowing that you don't exist without them, and then also looking down on them because you know you're sort of inferior. It's got to be an awful place to be. Should we play some more of this awful lady? She's on the thumbnail. Why not?
Why can't we at iHip News have crazy camera angles? Why? Why can't we?
If you guys are just listening, this is Jennifer Welch's podcast where she decided to dress up like Erica Kirk, which was a really cringeworthy thing. She's wearing a black hat and a black shirt. The Erica Kirk sort of like weird thing where she goes in and starts talking. I keep saying the word weird, but I don't know what else you call this. This is women left to their own devices without, without someone going, hey, this looks really gross. Maybe don't do that. Maybe don't go do awful things. Like you can not like someone who's a widow and you can also not be a complete disgusting creep. Or you could go out and call everybody a fascist and then say everyone is not as good as you. Yikes.
Why can't we act fucking unhinged? I want to be unhinged for America. I want to be crazy for America. I want to wake up this morning for her. America's pronouns, she, her. All right, that's all we have. Make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you pre-order my book, which I would like to dedicate to one Erica Kirk.
Her book, by the way, is called Not Today Fascists, which tells me she doesn't even know what fascism is.
Not Today Fascists. And Erica, the person that I'm talking about today, fascist, is you. You are the racist fascist about whom I am talking to. The work that your husband's company and that you are doing to America's youth to make them racist, narrow-minded, hateful, and batshit crazy is an absolute disgrace. And thank you for the outfit, #inspo.
Again, maybe it's because they live in the center of America and the news hasn't gotten there yet, but the Washington Post did a story about this just a little while ago. This was about a month ago. The quiet end of identity politics, which is what this woman is out there selling. She's selling identity politics, which is like Circa 2010. And it's borderline crazy to think that that's where they went with this. I'm going to read some of this story because I actually think they got the answer right, kind of like with their own lefty spin to it. But that's what's so wild. California may soon elect its first Latino governor in modern history. Los Angeles voters nearly denied a second term to the city's first female mayor. You hearing the identity politics? Not long ago, those developments would have dominated the political analysis of these cycles. I'm going to put this up because this was a cool graphic. This year, these headlines have barely registered. Democrats have long contended that America's central tension is the question of who belongs and have organized their politics accordingly. This is the identity politics. Who is supposed to be there? And is your identity the thing that you should organize around? But the California primary just offered a striking lesson on how much that has changed. And the contrast was especially clear in the governor's race. Earlier this year, the Democratic Party openly worried that too many candidates were dividing their support in a jungle primary, and they urged some to suspend their campaigns. Much of the party establishment coalesced around then Representative Eric Swalwell. Meanwhile, Javier Becerra, the state's former attorney general, cabinet secretary, and the most experienced public servant in the field, struggled to generate comparable enthusiasm from party insiders. Becerra is now the front runner. That outcome says something important about what Democratic voters were actually looking for, rather than what party leaders assumed they wanted. And what did they want? This is the meat and potatoes of this article, I think. Democrats spent much of the 2010s believing that demographic change itself was the political strategy. This is where Jennifer Welch is still sitting. That the achievement of identity politics was making demographic representation normal. So who you were as far as your look was the only thing that mattered. It didn't actually matter what your performance was, and it mattered even less what you said. So you end up with all of these dumb sort of DEI type hires in these positions. All right. Their goal was to make demographic representation normal. The lesson of the 2020s may be that demographic representation is now expected, but electoral success depends on delivering tangible results. I'm going to say that in a different way. People should be evaluated not by the color of their skin, but the content of their character and maybe the value of their works. That seems like an utterly conservative position that they're slowly getting to. And again, if you were going to go, what have you delivered? What have you done for me lately? Is the politics coming, is it coming downstream? Are we getting the information that we require? Are we getting the performance that we require? The political right, which is not very far right at all. In fact, I think it's left. The Republicans, they gave us a way to evaluate them. And here it is. Put it again, because it's always there for me. I can never stop thinking about this. They gave us a rubric to evaluate what they did. And the answer is their biggest things were not realized. They're not acting on them. Okay? If that's the case, they failed. So all you got to do to win is let the other team lose. And what you're getting right now is you're getting people on the political left recognizing that it's not how you look, it's what you do. How wild is that, you know? And you can call people fascists and racists and misogynists and homophobes, and none of us give a shit. I don't give a shit. Less and less people are going to look at that and say that those words have any power because they've been abused. We've had a wolf crying going on for a very long time. And when you cry wolf long enough, eventually nobody cares when you say wolf, even when there is a wolf. I'm going to give you an example of that in a second. And it's one of the dumbest articles I've ever seen at CNN, especially when you read the headline and then you get to the substance of it. So the path back to national power for Democrats in 2028 runs through a distinction. It means recruiting and elevating candidates of all backgrounds on the strength of their ideas and their records and not their visibility, to say not their identity. Holy freaking crap. Whoa! You want to run candidates based on the strength of their ideas and their records and not the way they look? Oh my goodness. This is groundbreaking stuff. How did anyone come up with this?
I'm a white woman that has lived in a red state my entire life. And I can tell you, when I'm around white people, they test the racist water. They test it on people like you all the time. And they'll try to say off-color things. I put my hand up. It absolutely happens. And you're fortunate that maybe you haven't experienced this.
Can I just say, literally this August,
literally,
a white person said the N-word in front of me.
And the vice president.
Guys, literally this August. Okay? Literally this August. I just ran some crime statistics for fun. The reason this came up for me, I'll tell you in 1 second. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you in 1 second. We'll get into the racial piece just a bit because that lady is nuts. And again, that is the losing philosophy, and you already heard the Washington Post reporting it. If you guys are watching on Rumble, give us a like. Give us a like on YouTube. Make us uncancelable as best we can be. Follow us in both places. You just never know. You really don't know. Subscribe, etc., etc. Find us on Spotify. We'll play an ad on the audio platforms right now. KyleSeraphinShow.com is how you find us on Spotify. Thank you for indulging me on those things. Again, if you're listening on the audio and you don't hear ads, great. Good for you. If you do hear ads, then you know that I warned you. So someone doesn't go like, Tide Pods are really great. Because that's what they do. All right. So I ran some crime stats by absolute numbers and by per capita. Oh, no, you did not. Yes, I did. White Americans, typically non-Hispanic white Americans, separated data, are convicted of the most property crimes in absolute numbers. They're also convicted of the highest numbers, it seems like, in the volume of violent crimes. We'll get to that in a second. Property crimes detail things like burglary, larceny, motor vehicle theft, and arson. Those are property crimes. They sometimes extend to fraud, forgery, embezzlement, vandalism, and stolen property. Notice nobody's hurt in that physically. They are hurt financially and economically. I actually remember this funny thing where this guy got a sentence, and he was a Jewish lawyer, and he'd done like some white collar fraud, and some black guy had stabbed somebody. So it was an attempted murder versus a stealing millions. And the white collar theft guy got like 3 years, whatever, in a low security prison. And the black guy who stabbed the guy got, like 20 years to life or something like that. And the black guy was incensed, and he was like, why did I get sentenced 20 years to life when that guy stole millions? And the famous sort of retort by the lawyer was, if you want to get a Jewish sentence or a white person sentence, then do Jewish or white person crimes, something to that effect. Which sounds like it might be really off color, and it might be really offensive to Jennifer, who says white people are always trying to push the envelope. No, I think that people are just waking up and saying we can have normal discussions. We lived through the 90s, we lived through the early 2000s. And even Democrats are recognizing that your ideas count. The content of your character should matter. It's not about your race, although there are some trends that we can recognize. It's obviously not going to be all black people. It's obviously not going to be all Indian people that irritate. I don't like that I live in an Indian-dominated neighborhood. Are some of them lovely people? I'm sure. Of course. It's crazy and bigoted to think otherwise. I can also look at trends, and I can say what I want to be around and what I don't want to be around based on the odds of dealing with certain things. That's not a crazy bigoted thought. That's a regular person discussion that normal people should be able to have. Say, hey, I've noticed this thing. When I see people that look a certain way, and it's not skin color, by the way, it's usually the way they present themselves. If you show up in baggy pants and you've got like a wife beater on and a do-rag, and you're a white dude and you're kind of dirty looking, and you look like you live on the street, or you're James O'Keefe pretending to be a homeless guy, like, you're a threat to my family. If you're a black guy, it's the same thing. For sure. I just look at you and I go, you're not it. You're not on my team. You're not part of my tribe. My tribe looks a certain way. They groom themselves a certain way. They carry themselves a certain way. They dress a certain way. It could be in a t-shirt. It could be in a suit. I can look at my tribe and know what it looks like. And so can you. And that shouldn't be crazy to say. Human beings have done that for all time. Pattern recognition is a human survival instinct. So this all comes out of a joke. And I think it was Clay Martin, who's a Green Beret. I think I've got that right. I think it was Clay Martin on X who posted this thing this morning. And it was a joke. And it's a funny joke to me. There's a story in some local newspaper talking about how a black bear, which is the smaller of the bears in North America, right? We have black bears and brown bears. Brown bears are the ones that'll tear you apart. Black bears, generally speaking, are scared of you. They're a couple 100 pounds and they run away. And we had black bears in Virginia, for example. I never saw them. I know they were there, but I never saw them. Black bear ran up on a golf course and apparently, in a very weird move, stole somebody's golf clubs, which is like the punchline of a joke. And so the answer was, I've never heard a polar bear do that. My wife looked at it for about 45 seconds, which is a testimony to the fact that my wife is a sweet and lovely person who does not do, trade and race jokes as a regular basis. Me, I saw it right away. This is my thing. I've never seen a polar bear steal somebody's golf clubs. Now, based on the numbers, which we're going to go through, the odds are is that it would be the polar bear that actually steals it because it turns out that people with white skin do property crime. This is a racial joke being disguised as a bear joke, and it's just silliness, and it's just people having good fun. And it's also based on actual numbers. It's also wrong about the actual numbers, but we all knew exactly what it was. We all knew what it meant if you were being serious. And that's not racist. That's just being silly. We used to always have racial jokes, and it was almost always the best racial jokes were the ones being made by the people in the racial group making fun of the stereotype. That's actually what makes it the most fun, right? I heard a guy on Kill Tony the other day. He was like, I had a couple more fat jokes, but I ate them. Boop, ba-doom, right? This is a classic self-deprecating thing. Okay, so let's go into some key things. In 2022 analysis separating race and ethnicity, white individuals accounted for 414,000 property crimes. This is in America. This is their arrests. 414,000 property crime arrests. Black individuals, grand total of 191. That's still a lot, isn't it? Based on the percentages, of course. Hispanics, 94,000. Whites led by a large margin. This is in absolute numbers. And then they break it down. 2023, same deal. Larceny. This is going to be theft without physically engaging with somebody else. 351,000 versus 192,000. This is black versus white. 66 versus 34,000. Black versus white, or white versus black in that order. Motor vehicle theft. This is where it gets a little bit closer. 38,000 to 26,000. White versus black. Arson, same deal. Okay. And I didn't ask, by the way, if you want to know what my prompt was, what race of Americans are convicted of the most property crimes? That was my prompt. And these things are pretty well established. The FBI does a pretty decent job on these stats. Okay. So anyway, I didn't ask break it out white versus black. That's just what I did because this is what people talk about. And then they have some bits in Hispanic, and basically Asians don't commit enough crime for it to matter. Except when they're like stealing our infrastructure and sending it to China. All right. The core property index crimes in 2023 yields roughly 461,000 white arrests versus 254,000 black arrests. Whites consistently represent the absolute largest share. In this case, it's about 60+% for all of the FBI tables. And they're going off the data they've got. And then they've got incarcerations, which is in its own thing. Absolute numbers versus rates. It gets in their important context. This is going to be the discussion of per capita, which we'll do in a second. And we're going to go to my next question. This is my next prompt. Which racial group of Americans, I wrote of Americas because I'm dumb, are convicted of the most violent crimes? Now we've gone from property crime to violent crime. This is relevant. Oh, white Americans have the largest number of convictions for violent crimes in absolute terms. Okay? So we understand this stuff. You have to be specific when you talk about it. When I hear a lady just say, broadly speaking, white people are willing to do like awful things and say racist jokes, it's like, dude, F you, weirdo lady who's living 30 years ago and trying to get 90s cool guy points from black people who told you they don't understand it. And then one black lady's like, I heard a white person say the N-word. So I heard a shitload of black people say the N-word, and I don't like it. I think it's dumb no matter who says it. I think all of you are dumb. I think it's dumb that Nick Fuentes says it. I think it's a really dumb thing. When someone says it to me, I'm like, you're not in my tribe. You're saying dumb stuff. Or maybe you're doing it for effect, in which case sometimes it could be quite funny. Arrest data. Okay, here you go. Total number of arrests that they had for violent crimes was 326,763. So about 325,000 total, and white people make up 175,000, which is about 53%. Black people make up 42%. I'll put it on the screen, sorry. Asians make up 2%. Nobody cares. Indians make up 1.8%. Indians being not India Indians, but like American Indians, Native Americans who are from some sort of tribal background. So again, it holds the pattern. Absolute numbers is a matter, like it's still going to be white people, which by the way is still the dominant number of people, even if it's barely in the United States. And then it gives you another thing. The context matters. Absolute versus per capita. This is what people base their pattern recognition on. And so then you get here, break these statistics down per capita. That's my prompt. And here we go. Per capita is almost always done per 100,000. These are the population rates that we worry about. Black Americans have substantially higher rates than white Americans for both property crimes and violent crimes, which is why the polar bear joke comes up. In absolute terms, it's not the most common. In per capita terms, which means the odds of any one person in that ethnic group being in that category, it matters. That doesn't indict everybody in that tribe. And this is the problem that the left does when they do identity politics. This is what they failed to do. They said, because the way you look determines everything I need to know about you. And the conservative position, which is actually really important, and it's where the political left is actually slowly getting, tells you what you do matters. Incredible. The Martin Luther King idea that the color of your skin is not the thing we should judge you on. It's the actions, it's the content of your character, which is manifest in the actions in the world. So here we go. Absolute numbers, they hit it again. Per capita rates, calculated as arrests per capita per 100,000 people using FBI race statistics. That's white alone and black alone. And matching the 2024 census estimates. White alone, black alone, blah, blah, blah. Violent crime equals murder, rape, manslaughter, non-negligent, robbery, which is going to be like you physically take something from somebody, aggravated assault, there's aggravated robberies, which involve violence and so on. Everybody has a different name at different state levels. This is what they're looking at. So here we go. Violent crimes per capita, 2024 FBI data. 69 per 100,000 is the white rate. Black rate is 297, which is a lot more than 69. So when you compare apples to apples for population size, you end up with blacks relative to whites 4.3% higher, or 4.3x higher. That's 430% higher. That's a big deal. That's a big number. That's what pattern recognition like. Again, that doesn't indict any individual black person ever, and it never should. I can almost always look at people and decide whether or not these people are going to be presenting themselves as a threat or not. And those are choices. Every day you get out of bed and you comb your hair to the side like I did today for the first time in a long time because my hair's getting a little longer. You comb or you don't comb your beard. You put weird braids in it. You let your kids put sparkly stickers on your shirt. You walk out because you're a dad. Or you wear like a wife beater and you got sleeve tattoos. Like you've presented yourself to the world on purpose. Let's not act like you didn't. Let's not pretend like you're not making a conscious choice about how you want people to see you. And then people will respond to the way that you look. If you look like Jennifer Welch, you're telling me basically that you're an awful, disgusting human being that's ready to scold me. And I'm going to walk up to you and leave as soon as I get an opportunity. If this lady, either of these ladies, say something to me, I'm leaving. I don't even waste my time anymore. Maybe you guys are willing to hear goofy ladies. I don't have any patience for that. I think it's gross. If they want to make fun of homeschoolers, like find your crowd. I do the thing that is kind of funny because this is what these ladies do too. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but this is a tactic. What they'll do is they'll basically pretend like you're obviously on their side because that's the side that sanity is on. They will talk to you as though you're in their in-group, even though they don't know if you agree with them because they assume that their position is the default position. I do the same thing. I just assume that you think that women don't belong in the workplace, that going to church on Sunday is the thing that everybody should do, that we should be teaching our children Christian values, that I think firearms belong in everybody's hands and everybody should train to do that, that men should lift weights and be strong. I think that basically I treat everybody in a very specific way, that all men think the way that I do, that all women think the way my wife does. And if you don't, I look at you like you're weird. Do I know that's not true? Yeah, of course I do. But I'm doing the same thing that she does because I just don't care. I'm not going to pretend anymore with ladies like that. And I'm going to give you a hint for women who don't really know how men work. This is a quick 20-second tutorial. This is how all men work, as far as I'm concerned. This is the cheat code concept to be able to operate around men. And men you know this is 100% true too. So just like acknowledge it for yourself.
Any man that lifts more weight than me or trains combat more than me is a dumb, egotistical meathead that lacks the ability to appreciate the emotional complexities of life, okay? Simultaneously, any man that lifts less weight than me or trains combat less than me is just a gay little soy boy pussy, okay?
That's factually true. That's the way we operate. We all have these like weird little biases in our heads and we just look at everybody and we judge the living shit out of them every moment we get. So we are judgmental human beings by nature. Every single one of you that has a spouse, you guys have people that you go and you're very nice to in public, go to their house, but you weren't sure you wanted to go. And then when you leave, you're just like, F that person. You can't wait to get in the car to shit talk these people. For their weird, oh, did you see how gross their floors were? Oh, can you believe that? Oh my God, they don't even clean their toilets. I was looking at them and I was feeling so superior to them because of all these things. It's the reason why the debt show that Caleb Hammer does is popular. People want to know that other people are inferior to them. And then every once in a while, we have these things that we see on Instagram too, or you'll see them on Facebook or somebody sends you a video of some dude like doing some crazy thing. If you guys want to feel humble, watch my buddy George Nutter. I'm just going to call him out by name because like I love George. George is like one of my favorite people. He was my neighbor. He looks like a felon. George, you look like a felon. George looks like not my tribe. He has a shaved head, scrubbly, beardy, kind of light beard. He's got tattoos, like Irish gangstery looking tattoos, like stained glass window, I don't know, Boondock Saintsy. He's got his wife's name tattooed on his neck, which is a really interesting choice because he's super dedicated to his wife, but it looks like he got it in prison. And when I asked him, when I first saw the guy, I looked at him and I went like, that guy is not my tribe. I just don't think he is. I think that guy might be a felon. Or he's an undercover cop that's like working motorcycle. Like, I don't know what's up with that dude. But I think he's going to be a problem in this neighborhood. He looks like he's carrying a gun. Like, oh, whoa, what am I going to do with this? I moved next to a guy who had neck tattoos, a bunch of tattoos on his arms, wore wife beaters, and he wore freaking, whatever, basketball shorts. And he was muscled out. And I was like, this dude looks problematic. He's also probably an uneducated heathen. It turns out he's an awesome human being. He reads more books than anybody I know. He's self-educated. He's an autodidact. He's a power lifter that's super humble and it's like in an asshole way. Like, do you guys have any friends that are super strong and then they lift a shit? Like I watched him bench 405 the other day, like more than once. And I was like, you freaking asshole. He's my size. He's 5'8". And he's just like crushing 4 plates. Make sure I did the math correct on that, but I think I did it right. Right? 135, 225, 315, 405. Yeah, I think so. I think I'm right. My dude's out there crushing, and he used to tell me this. He was like, oh, I'm not strong. I'm just good at lifting weights. I'm like, stop with the false humility. Completely devastated the stereotype of, if you looked at this guy, you'd be like, this dude is a problem. He's probably not a good father. He probably doesn't have a wife that he, loves and adores. He probably doesn't take care of his children. He probably has a criminal record. That may be true. And whatever other things you think are bad about him. Can't hold out a job. Like, I don't know. I look at this guy and you'll judge the shit out of him. And I think I've told him this to his face, so I'm sure this is not crazy. So people should be evaluated based on their individual performance. But the way they present themselves to the world does tell us a lot. And it does make us make judgment. I don't think that he would be surprised if someone looked at him and was like, oh, a little worried about this guy. I think he would probably like that. He's not dumb. He knows that, right? He presents himself in that way. Back to per capita. The numbers per capita do not lie when it comes to this thing about crime. When I hear white ladies in Oklahoma with bleached faces that think that they are basically Khaleesi from the Game of Thrones movie, that they're here for the unwashed masses that must lift them up, and they think that they are slowly being carried upon this platform of the unwashed, gross people, and they're just there to save little brown. I had a professor that used to call it little brown brother, little black brother, little yellow brother, like all this stuff. This like very, very European, this very bizarre sort of English mindset of racial superiority. That's what these ladies do. They're freaking racist. Like, identity politics was always racist. There you have it. Anyway, property crimes. Turns out per capita, white people, 181 per 100,000. Black people, 546 per 100,000. That's a big change. It's like a 3x gap, right? When it comes to violent crime, it's like 8x for robbery and murder. 3 to 5x when it comes to rape and assault. These numbers are not negotiable. They're just numbers. They're not racial or otherwise. And they inform people's thinking. But as you're seeing here in this very key paragraph, Democrats are starting to wake up to the idea that you cannot do what this Jennifer Welch lady is doing and be successful. The lesson of the 2020s may be that demographic representation is now expected, but electoral success depends on delivering tangible results. And again, said one more time in a different way, you can judge people based on the content of their character, which is manifest in the actions that they carry out in the world, instead of whatever the color of their skin is. Which, by the way, is a pretty Christian thing to do. We're not supposed to judge anybody, but we do. So let's be real. We just do. And we can work on it, but we're still going to do it. But more importantly, our politics should be based on what you deliver. What have you done for me lately? What have you promised me? And have you done it? And so it's super easy. We just go right back here and we look at the 20 core promises. We can see that our current group has not done the thing they said they would do. Non-negotiable, very frustrating. Nobody's cheering for that voted for this guy. It doesn't mean that the other side is better. And the other side is actually going to give us a run for their money in doing dumb things. And here's a great example of that. Jennifer Welch is one thing, calling people who are homeschool moms useless. Good luck with that. It's a pretty normal thing to think that parents would care about their kids. This story came from a guy named Andrew Kazansky. It's on CNN. It's for subscribers. It's known as the K-File. I've literally never heard of the K-File, even though I think I follow this guy. And he is going to call out Mike Collins, who is in Georgia, and he's a House of Representative running for Senate against Joel Ossoff. And he probably doesn't win, to be fair. But you never know. And they're going to smear him with this trash. You guys ready? Listen to the words, and then I'll read you the story, and you tell me the disconnect here. GOP Senate candidate has close ties to white nationalist influencer, his son-in-law. Did you guys see the movie Jaws? For some reason, I've always got this in there. There's this moment in the movie Jaws that I absolutely love, and my buddy and I would do it to each other all the time, so we're kind of retarded when we go out fishing, because I'd always watch Jaws before I went fishing out in the ocean. Just, you got to be ready. You got to prepare yourself for the worst case scenario, that you're going to be on a boat that sinks and there's fish out there and sharks. So the guy's like, this wasn't made by a so-and-so. They had that like 70s lilt, or like the 60s lilt, when they were talking like, this was not made by a so-and-so. This wasn't made by a thing. It was made by a shark, a tiger shark. And the guy goes, ahwah. That's what I did when I read this article. Ahwah. A white nationalist, his son-in-law? Ahwah. This story is freaking retarded. It's absolutely insane. And I think it has everything to do with not learning the right lessons. So you guys are going to push this out there. People are done with this shit. It's dumb. Republican Senate candidate Mike Collins built a national profile as a combative, Trump-aligned online provocateur. He says some really funny stuff, by the way. I follow him on X, and he says the things that are uncancelable. A style that has repeatedly drawn scrutiny from his associates with far-right figures, inflammatory social media posts, and accusations of anti-Semitism, which he's denied. He's making jokes on a regular basis, and they're actually kind of funny for a politician. Good point. Like, well done. Now, one of the starkest examples of extremism in the Georgia congressman's orbit appears much closer to home. His son-in-law, David Allen Schreier II, a pro-white nationalist social media influencer with a track record of sharing anti-Semitic material and Nazi imagery in comments across the internet. Guys, if you saw the things that pop up in the algo on Instagram for me, which, by the way, comes from one of my wife's friends who sends my wife's things that she thinks are funny. My wife sends them over to me because she can't look at Instagram because she doesn't have an account. And then we watch them, and they're like Jewish jokes and racial jokes and making fun of here's a building in 2026 Africa. Here's the same building like 800 years ago. It's the same building. It's a mud hut or whatever. Like, all that stuff comes into my feed on a regular basis. I get all those things, and some of them are really funny. Like, you just know what the joke is. It's not offensive to have a joke about things. In fact, the minute you make that off limits is when those people crawl into the darkness and they never talk about it. If you can't talk about racial statistics and crime, then we don't live in a free world. And a lot of us are feeling like we're just done with this shit. We're just done with being told that we can't talk about things that are true. That doesn't mean that you're bigoted. And I don't think I'm bigoted. Although I do have prejudices like everybody else. I do look at people and I prejudge them 100%. So do you. So does Jennifer Welch, who looks at a white person and sees evil because they go to church. Same as this atheist lady I met who was from California, who was like, all the school programs I want to put my kids in, they're all Christian programs. You know, Christians who are dumb and believe in a sky daddy. And I was like, well, there must be something going on there, because you want to be around these people because it turns out they're safe and they're good at educating children and they care about them. Meanwhile, this lunatic that wants to hang out with the Jennifer Welch types, this Angie Sullivan, she would crawl over broken glass with her kids on her back to get rid of her children. No wonder you guys want to do abortion. It's just saying, like, your values get manifest. Sheer, who is married to Colin's daughter, Summer, is featured in family photographs on the Collins campaign website and on social media. I think this is the dumbest shit I've ever seen in my life. And I've said shit a few times more than I wanted to today, but it is really, really, really dumb. My mother-in-law raises money for Amy Klobuchar. I like my mother-in-law. She's a really nice lady. I don't agree with a lot of the things she says. I think her ideas are awful. I would say that to her face. When I do say it to her face, she usually doesn't know how to disagree with me. But I'm happy to have that conversation with her, and she's certainly invited to be in my home, and she's certainly going to be around my kids. I think her ideas are awful, and they are not what we train for values in this house. And it doesn't matter because she's family. Do you think that because this guy puts some social media memes up and makes racial jokes, and you called him a white nationalist, which means he probably isn't, and I'm not even sure that that's a problem anymore, because there's an awful lot of black nationalists, and I know the Jennifer Welch types would be behind that. Can we agree that family is family and that doesn't matter, that you, like, your family is your family? By the way, this isn't even family by blood. You can't even look and say, this is the person you raised. You're like, this is the person that your daughter has married. He may have an estranged relationship with his daughter for all you know, which is very common. If we're going to go out there and point out that somebody married someone who has ideas that you don't like, this is not a litmus test that Democrats are going to be able to stand up to. And nor should anybody. It's just dumb. It's bad politics. How about, what did they do? How about you let people stand on their own merit, which is exactly what the Washington Post was recognizing is going on in California, which means that's the way it's going now. He attended Collins, this is the son-in-law, who's apparently a pro-white nationalist. He attended his primary election victory party. Oh my God. You invited your daughter's husband to come to a thing that was important to you? Shame on you. It's the dumbest thing, and appeared to help produce promotional work for Collins' trunking company. Again, so what? The guy is registered to vote at a Collins-owned property. Sounds like the congressman has like things, and his daughter is a beneficiary of it. On Instagram, he recently shared multiple posts promoting Patriot Front, which is a white supremacist hate group. They just made that up. They're like a white nationalist, like non-violent group. I don't think they're a hate group either. I think they're kind of dumb, Patriot Front, but they're not violent. The stuff they say is going to become more and more normal. And guess what? You're going to see a lot more people that are siding with these guys the more that you try to do this like cry wolf thing. You will. He's amassed more than 1.5 million followers on TikTok and on YouTube and Instagram and Telegram by posting about fitness and masculinity and Christianity. Let's just get down to the real brass tacks. The real problem with this guy is that he's posting about fitness and Christianity and masculinity, and sometimes there's a little crossover there with these people that are quote unquote white nationalists. I'm pretty sure I was in a Twitter space the other day that were full of like so-called white nationalists, and they were totally reasonable, and they were really nice. And I listened to one of the things they said, and I was like, ooh, somebody's going to clip that. In fact, somebody will hear this on the show, and they'll go clip it, and they'll claim something about me. Kyle's got a real specific haircut, and he's growing a beard, and he advocates for guns and fitness. That sounds racially motivated. You know what I also said? They said, are you going to watch this new Christopher Nolan movie that features like wild casting and a lesbian dressed like a man as Achilles and some other stuff? And I said, no, I'm not. I'm not going to watch any movies in the theater. I haven't watched a movie in the theater in 10 years. And the reason I'm not going to watch it is because I have 4 little blue-eyed babies that I am keeping track of. And guess what? My wife has blue eyes, and I have blue eyes, and all my children, they have freaking blue eyes. And they look like little me's with blonder hair. I got little blonde-haired, blue-eyed babies running around my house. And when I said that, the people who were listening, who probably will be smeared as white supremacists or white nationalists or whatever the heck they are, you know, ethnocentrists or something, they said, well, we hope that you have a 5th little blue-eyed baby. And I said, yeah, me too, which is true, because I would like to have more children because I love kids and they're really important to me. And that will be looked at as being some sort of inappropriate thing. Meanwhile, you'll have people that are advertising black is beautiful, which is fine. It doesn't offend, like your black is beautiful and your black power fist and your ethnocentric ideas, they don't offend me at all. They don't bother me at all. Go fix your communities. If you live in there, there's not a ton of black people in my community, not because I chose otherwise, just because we don't have the same values in what we buy our money and, put our money into. So there you go. So do the things that are good for the things around you, and it doesn't exclude anybody else. It turns out that people looking for same in values, it's like a classic human being free association. And there's the one thing that's pushing back against the normal things that you do, which is just like look around and try to make the world safe for your children and the values that you have, finding people that have the same values around you, associating with them freely. The only people that really push against that, it turns out, I think, are women. I think women think that it's impolite or it's wrong, and then you end up getting these people to be able to have abnormally loud voices, which is insane because they are fringe crazy people. Here it is one more time.
You would not believe how many people in Bible study homeschool their kids. And you just think, I worry about that. And then you see those witness booklets or whatever they're called that the Duggars use, and they're like top out at 8th grade. I mean, I just think homeschooling is a bad idea from soup to nuts. I don't care if you're a nuclear physicist. I think it's just fucking weird as fuck that you want your kids around you all day, every day, and all night. And just the socialization. For me personally, it was that I would have gotten up on my hands and knees and strapped them to my back and crawled to get them to school every day, just to get them where I wasn't. So I don't trust somebody that wants to be with their kids 24/7. I think a lot of dumb people do it because it's just easier. And that's a concern. And I've had.
Okay. And it's a concern that you don't want to be around your children. I think that's horrific. And the numbers don't back what this woman says. Homeschool students, this is coming from left-leaning Gemini, Google AI. These stats are regularly done, but I just wanted to put it in writing for you guys to be able to see where I'm getting it from. Homeschool students in America consistently outperform their public school peers on standardized tests, scoring 15 to 25 percentile points higher. Over 60% of peer-reviewed studies indicate homeschoolers perform significantly better academically. And then this is against the typical average of 1.4 to 2.2 points higher on the ACT. Who takes the ACT anyway? Communists? It's one of the hardest things you can do. And what it indicates is your value system. And the value system is that you think children and probably Christianity and maybe fitness and morality are all important. It's as simple as that. It is assumed in my group of people that when I meet people that otherwise kind of look like me, kind of sound like me, kind of say they might have the same values, I assume that they homeschool. And if they don't, they apologize for not homeschooling. Do you guys know that? This is very common right now. Everybody that is thinking looks at what the government schools have done and they aspire to homeschool, and maybe they haven't gotten there yet. Meanwhile, you've got these ladies 15 or 20 years in the past, and they're saying really, really dumb stuff. But there's a market for it. It's the same market that exists on the right for Fox News, which is I'm not going to deal in facts and I'm not going to deal in anything that's grounded based on statistics. I'm going to go based on feelings and stupidity. This is the thing that was always made fun of on the left. We should be very cautious that people on the quote unquote right, which generally speaking are just performative, they're not getting it done. So there you go. I will tell you one last little thing. I wanted to play this only. It has nothing to do with any of these things other than I know we're not getting what we want because we are seeing this performative nonsense from our Treasury Secretary. He's being billed as being conservative. When I look at the Trump administration, I also figure out like who their hiring decisions are. It says an awful lot about them. This guy is being trotted out regularly as a messaging campaign winner. He used to work for George Soros. He's a gay man that has children that he bought. He's not young. He's worth $500+ million. He's claiming that he doesn't have any money. And he's saying the same thing that I heard JD Vance said. So when I look at this as a loss and I think that all the other side has to do is shut their mouth. They won't do it, by the way. So I guess that's good. I guess it'll be interesting. Maybe we'll have like a narrative fight in November. But when I see Scott Bessent going out and saying this nonsense, talking to Mike Rowe, who's maybe one of the most likable men in America and one of the most masculine, like traditional regular dudes in America without being over the top about it, it's pretty incredible that you're going to make this claim about AI data centers. He says exactly the same thing they said about the first clip I played you, the Epstein. The PR rollout was terrible. We didn't tell you what to think very well about the Epstein case. This is a pattern when you start seeing it across multiple cabinet members. And so here you have this. This is about AI data centers, which are broadly and roundly and aggressively disliked by the American people for a lot of reasons. Here's Mike Rowe articulating the problem, and listen to the response.
It feels to me like 75% of the country is uneasy about AI and nervous about data centers. Larry Fink at BlackRock says that we got a $10 trillion infrastructure that has to be built out in the next 7 or 8 years. It's not really negotiable. But I think a lot of people look at that and they feel like we're doing it in the name of efficiency because we have to somehow compete with China in order to get the AI first, which means the data centers, which we don't quite understand either. So we're like in some kind of crazy race, and we don't know where the finish line is. We just know it's really expensive and unnerving. So make everybody feel better about that.
Yeah, I'm mercifully not an economist. I'm an economic historian. So the history of new technologies, people are always worried. There were people who wouldn't get into cars. When cars first came out, you had somebody at night who walked in front with a lantern and kind of did that. And people who owned a horse and buggy maybe weren't happy. 20% of the jobs that people had now didn't exist in 2000. So we've got to keep innovating. The people who've done it, who are building it out, have done a terrible job explaining it. And when you use AI, when you go on Google, Google's AI. When you do spell check, that's AI. It is just growing. It's growing, and it's going to be able to do more for you. Like the optimistic view of AI, I am very optimistic for small business on AI because it's going to let small business compete with big business.
Is there any evidence that the people like this care about small business based on the way that they actually operate? No. Is there any likelihood that they're going to have a positive and some sort of utopian output from this technology? I don't think so. If you think about it, the internet had that sort of possibilities, and it turned out it got monetized because of pornography. So I'm pretty confident that human nature always slants these things to an awful and dark place. It's going to be used to kill us. And every single thought experiment in this space has actually been warning us about this. But here we go.
You could start a business that used to take 10 people to start. You could start with one or two people.
Great.
And we've seen no job loss from AI yet. I don't think we have to. I talk to corporations. We see one large credit card company, maybe we'll be able to figure it out. When I say this, they move people from collections to their travel department. And AI is going to make people more efficient. It's a tool, and it is to be used just like Google didn't exist in 2000. Sure. Now it's a verb.
Just needs better marketing, guys, if we could just pitch it that way. So we'll go to the AI real quick. The only thing I do like about AI is being able to scroll large sets of data and be able to get statistics out of it, get answers from large data sets that I don't always have access to. I think that's useful. I use it all the time. That doesn't bother me. It's the automation game. It's the putting in the replacement of human beings as the decision maker. That bothers me. And also some of these things are fake. By the way, if you guys are curious, modern homeschooling is increasingly diverse, with students of color, which is a weird way of saying colored people, which you used to be allowed to say when you had the NAACP, which is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. But anyway, the students of color, which I always found weird, I always wondered where color was, are making up roughly 30 or 40% of homeschooling, which is a growing thing, but it still turns out that based on national averages, 60 to 69% of the homeschooling population are white, which is probably why self-loathing white people who are progressive atheists don't like it. They just wish, if there were more black people, they know they couldn't say that. Isn't that crazy? Because there are some people that are still doing the old game. So we'll see. You're going to see very sophisticated narratives. I think you're going to see people that are attempting to slant it. And if you are not paying attention as a critical skeptic, which means you should be skeptical of what I say. I don't speak for anybody but me. You should be skeptical of what you think, what the news articles you're reading say. It's a general rule. You should be skeptical of all technologies and how they're going to be used. You should be looking for the angles, how they screw you up. All these things are real. They're all out there. We all know about this if we're being honest. So don't be lazy. Don't be complacent. That's the general rule. And realize that you probably can't fix any of this stuff. And I still think that voting is a grown-up letter to Santa Claus. Take that for whatever it's worth. Do whatever you want with it. I don't care. It doesn't make a difference to me. I do appreciate all of you guys joining the program. I think for those of you that have already hit the like button, thank you so much. If you haven't done so, please do so. It does something. I don't know what it does. It puts us on the leaderboard on Rumble. It gives us the algorithmic views over on X, and the same thing over on YouTube. And if you are listening on one of the audio platforms, leave us a 5-star review. Tell us what you like or what you didn't like. Tell us equals me. And do the same thing on Spotify. All right. Now, talked about what are you going to do if you're a Democrat recruiter who's doing your best to get people that are not going to offend the Jennifer Welches, but also, just generally speaking, might be electable. You're in a bad spot. They have a kind of a rough thing that happened with Graham Plattner. They kind of farmed out this guy who kind of had a kind of blue-collar-y thing. Maybe you should go to meat-headed bodybuilders that don't have a lot of political thoughts. Maybe? Let's try to recruit one real quick.
I'm a recruiter from the insurgent left. We just hit a major snafu with Graham Plattner. We almost got him over the finish line, but then sexual assault allegations. That sinks you on our end. If you run as a Republican, you're fine. It's not fair. But we need someone blue collar, works with his hands. We don't want some smooth groined egghead that can't get the gays and ladies going. I think you're our guy.
Blue collar or not, I don't know a thing about anything going on up there.
That's fine. We can help you on policy. Can you say Medicare for all?
Medicare for all.
Can you say oligarchy?
Yeah, the oligarchy is doing well.
Can you say fuck AIPAC?
Fuck AIPAC.
You're perfect. Do you have any tattoos?
None that would ever worry anybody.
Do you leave comments on Reddit?
No.
Do you have any sexual assault allegations?
Not sexual allegations.
Have you ever been in a fight?
Yeah, but I don't know how that
That's awesome. The country needs you.
They know where to find me. I see RFK here quite often.
But you're not afraid to stand up to him.
I mean, I've had to.
We'd love to recruit you. God damn.
Yeah.
If you missed out, he just grabbed a hold of his bicep.
My bing bong ain't out. I'm chilling.
That's
Bing
all.
bong's not out. I'm good.
If you got a history of keeping your bing bong in your pants, I think you can get away with it if you're a good looking meathead and you don't know anything about politics. Yeah, it turns out maybe we just evaluate people based on what they do. That'd be kind of a cool thing. Wouldn't that be revolutionary? Maybe the left will join us, or maybe they'll just keep doing Jennifer Welch stuff. So be it. That's the day. It's Thursday. I'm going to be working on a responsive pleading to a dumb lawsuit that I have to deal with, which sucks. I hope you guys have a good one. I will see you at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time for the call-in show that we do. If you want to be part of that, make sure you guys sign up for the locals channel at kyleseraphin.com, or you can go over to YouTube and you can join us there, or you can join us over on X as a subscriber / channel member, whatever that thing is. And then you can call in. So I'll look forward to talking to you guys tonight. I hope you have a great day until then, and we'll see you on the other side.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.